The Open Highway podcast is a production of Viking Dog Entertainment, and now you can visit the all-new Viking Dog store for access to everything that Viking Dog has to offer. Movies, books, and apparel, including motivational lines, open highway merchandise, and exclusive wolf designs that raise money for wolf rescue organizations. So visit thevikingdogstore.com today. Mr. Jarbo, it's been such a long time. It's in full disclosure. So you and I did a show together. When was that? In 2013?
12.
12? Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So we did Valhalla Lounge together. And since then, you used to do a lot of different shows. You had your own network. You had a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was trying.
Yeah, well, we were all trying.
I was like, well, I can't do anything else in LA. Being a writer pays nothing. And, and I don't have any gear, but I can at least upload stuff for free to the internet and go from there.
Well, you were, weren't you involved in Gamergate? Somehow.
I was like at the beginning of it. I was like, if you look at what happened with Gamergate, I was literally just adjacent to the center of it. I think what happened to me, I got a false DMCA strike on a video from the main person, I guess, on the opposite side. And that kind of kicked off what was part of this massive censorship campaign on not only that, but on Reddit, where there were tens of thousands of comments that were being deleted, everyone discussing this person. And then we found out that person, that games designer, was friends with a journalist who was friends with one of the head moderators of that. It was our gaming too. It was so it was a major subreddit. So it was this massive censorship campaign to try to stop the spread of these accusations levied through this blog. And of course, this was 3 years before Me Too. So no one cared that a guy came out with these accusations of being in an abusive relationship. And then the whole thing from there went crazy. That games journalist ultimately wrote a book that was optioned by Sony to be made into a movie. And she wanted Scarlett Johansson to play her. And then even in the book, in the first couple chapters of the book, I'm referenced 3 times. Not by name. In the book, it's called Crash Override. Yeah, it's and I'm referenced 3 times as my avatar, little blue skull guy, is what she called me, and effectively, she lied about all 3 things that are provable. But what's funny was that she basically says that Gamergate is what got Donald Trump elected, and then she kind of insinuates that I'm the one who started Gamergate. So by her logic, I'm the one who got Donald Trump elected, which is really weird because I'm a Bernie Sanders supporting lefty and who doesn't like Donald Trump. So it's one of those, it's one of those great burdens I have to bear. That's my cross.
I'm sorry, brother. I can't lay all the blame on your feet for that whole thing. I just don't. I mean, the logic, that's worse than my logic that OJ led us to the Kardashians. That's my whole.
That is, what? By just, he played the long game. If you think about it, right? He played the long game. He really wanted to make sure that wasn't he a running back in football? Was that what he was? I don't follow sports.
Right. I went to SC, but I do not remember.
All right. So let's just say, for the purpose of this joke, he's a running back. All right. And so what he did is he led us to also Kim Kardashian's back, which the first time we saw it was covered in spunk. Anyway, so it's just, that's what led us down this pathway. It's all part of the big game of dominoes, Eric. That's all it is.
So if Kanye had got elected president, then we could have tied that back to OJ.
We could have. Yeah, we could have, right? It would have been this massive loop, brought us back to the beginning. Obviously, everything in balance and in harmony.
And the fall of mankind.
Yeah, pretty much.
So after you got out of that, so you took a shift in the way that you had it with. You ended up getting married and having kids, and
no, I'm not married.
You ended up living in sin.
Yes.
and the whole thing. So you were here in LA with me, and you ended up moving up to the Northwest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're still involved in podcasting. You're still involved in shows and videos and everything. But you took a different direction now. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Well, right around the time we were doing the Valhalla Lounge, I was just discovering YouTube and what I was doing back then. I don't know if I told you. I know you knew about it. I was covering like current events, but like from a real like shock jock perspective,
Hmm.
which in hindsight was just really immature humor, which obviously I still have, but I'm just more sophisticated.
You and James Gunn.
Yeah. Okay. Funny thing, around that same time, yeah, I've said some really stupid things around that same time as well. But Twitter back in 2012 was a bit of a wild card. A bit of the wild west. Everyone
You
is
were
out there.
trying to get noticed
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then. You were
Well,
you were trying to ruffle feathers,
well,
not the
yeah,
general you, not just you.
yeah. It's like colloquial you.
Yeah.
But you recall like there was that Twitter account "Shit My Dad Says" that
Hmm.
ended up becoming a book and then ended up becoming a one-season show starring William Shatner. So back then it was literally like, wait a minute, hold on, I can have an internet persona and it can actually get popular enough to get me a show. So then everyone was just trying to be as wild and crazy as they can. Nowadays, everyone's just afraid of their neighbor and in the cancel culture, which I'm sure we'll touch upon here in a bit. But so yeah, back then I was doing this mundane Matt persona, and that was kind of like going okay, but it was really negative, and I realized now like it was probably not the right thing to do, but it worked out for me for a time because it allowed me to go full time in 2015
Yeah.
to go full time doing it, and then you know I'm still doing it, just not making anywhere near as much as I used to. But that's because also my approach has changed and other things have happened too.
You've matured.
Nah, well, I mean, I don't want to sit there and say that I've matured because I'm gonna make a lot of really bad jokes all the time. It's what I do.
Well,
But
I miss that. I
yeah,
miss that.
I miss hanging. Well, we haven't talked like since I saw you in 2014. Really, it's just
No,
been
no, and that's the part of the reason I wanted to catch up with you, but I also wanted you to get
yeah,
on the show because one of the topics that's really been, in the front of my head lately has been this polarization and this just it's this whole idea that we can't have a discussion because we have to protect our camp. That's kind of how everybody feels. These battle lines have been drawn, and you can't even entertain an idea if somebody in the other camp has suggested it, touched on it, or even thought of it. And it's like this stratego like battle that's been set up between the red and the blue. And I always found your ideas on this fascinating. So when we bumped into each other, I was like, "Oh, you need to come talk to me about this. This
well,
has
I was
got to
surprised
happen."
you followed me on Twitter. I saw that and I was like, oh shit, all right, cool. Like I was, I'll be honest with you, man. Like I've followed like your journey on Facebook for a while, but like I feel like I've been so far removed. I just haven't like reached out to say anything, and I felt bad about that. But it's been like I'm like I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like so social media keeps us connected but also extremely separated, and so it's like any relationship. If you step out for a while and then you kind of you're on the outskirts, it feels weird reapproaching because I didn't know where you were in life, and I was reading your posts and I had thoughts, I had questions, but I just didn't want to ask because I didn't want to be insensitive, you know.
Oh, I've had the journey.
Yeah,
I've
no,
had
you have. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's part of that's part of why I created Open Highway is like I felt like I had kind of COVID was a big part of it, but also life. I think I felt like I'd reached this stagnation point where I hadn't been pushing myself, I hadn't been learning. And I've mentioned this on the show before. The way I learn is through conversations. I'm not a class person. I'm not a big, sit there and get lectured to. I usually end up falling asleep or asking questions that cause trouble. I'm more of a back and forth conversation, and that's partially how I work out my ideas. There's something about saying them and having them kind of hanging out in front of you, like these little like comic book balloons almost, that you have to address them and be like, oh, okay, do I believe that? Do I not believe that? Wow, that sounds really stupid now that it's come out of my mouth. Those types of things. So that's kind of why I created all this, and the process is definitely made me personally have to approach and address certain things. And,
Yeah.
then you put them out into the public, and then you're responsible for that as well. So it's been a really interesting learning process for myself.
No, I completely understand. Like I had a massive fallout a little over 3 years ago, where the best way to describe it is I was being there was a fallout within my community, and so like coming okay, so you have to understand
Which
like
community? Which community?
sorry, the YouTube commentary community, right? Those of
Okay.
us who like we're mostly critical of like hardcore feminists or like the social justice warrior types, the blue check marks on Twitter that whine and complain about everything. And now it's
Hoorah.
actually kind of both sides more frequently than not. So it is, I'm still in the center on that fight. I'm like, you're both stupid. Stop it. But in this case, it was like a lot of those kind of guys. And then at the end, so in 2017, we had the Adpocalypse, right? So the Adpocalypse is what started when the Wall Street Journal went after PewDiePie and selectively edited some choice clips in this like 90-second video that ended up going out and causing this massive backlash. And then they kept they were able to kind of frame this narrative that us on YouTube were like really, really, really bad, and that we were making money being really, really, really bad or having really bad opinions. Some people absolutely were. But the result of this backlash was like 216 companies pulling out of YouTube or Google in regards to advertising, which from what I read, and again, I don't know if this is 100% true, just a rough estimate, roughly about $50 billion in ad revenue YouTube lost or Google lost.
No, wait. Let me clear it. So this is people that were like doing. Clarify that. Like, what were they
Okay, so
doing?
like think of like hardcore political politics commentators, right?
Talking
So
heads.
pundits, yeah, a lot of talking head stuff. It's like a lot of naughty language, a lot of personal attacks on people, a lot of things like that, But it was like it was this culture war, like, and the culture war still very much exists. It's just in a different place now than it was a number of years ago.
Right.
And there are different talking heads now and everything.
So
But
these
on
were the
you,
people that were just like, how much can I rile somebody up
uh,
if I call someone enough names? If like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at how out there I am. Is
yeah,
that
pretty much.
okay?
Yeah. And so that was a lot of it back then. But we had a pretty kind of tight-knit community, and a lot of this came out of Gamergate. And so in 2016, a lot of us made more money that year than like ever before because of the 2016 presidential election. And just at that time, the ads on YouTube were flowing like wine. I mean, I made about 70 grand that year, and mostly just sitting on my ass and talking about shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and it was just like money was coming in. Like the day of the election, I made like $500 in ad revenue. Then after that, it was like $300 a day till the end of the year. It was just insane money. I'd never made that much money in my entire life. So you're incentivized to keep going and keep going and keep going. But then in 2017, when the Adpocalypse hit, that nuked like a lot of our revenue by about probably 55%. So that was a massive hit. And I had just bought a house, and my girlfriend was just told me she was pregnant with our daughter. And she was also leaving her $70,000 a year job from in Portland to move up to like the sticks in Washington, because we thought that my income at the time would be able to handle it. And so it's like, whoopsie, and so from there, a lot of people started getting desperate. And that's when YouTube introduced super chats on live streams. And so people realized, wait, I can do a live stream and I can just like start attacking and roasting other YouTubers to create that drama. But now I can get that real-time feedback. And if it's drama enough, I can make a lot of money doing it. And so in the commentary community, originally, like in the first half of 2016, it was like, we're all united, we're all working together, we're all trying to build each other up. Then some stuff went down at the end of 2017. A lot of false accusations were made, a lot of just false assumptions were made, and it cracked it down the center, especially turning certain people against their own friends, like that they had hung out with months earlier at VidCon, and like turn them against because of the money. And then the alt-right came into the equation, and that's a whole other thing. But so in 2018, because I was vocal and I had spoken up against these guys, I was a heavy target. And so people were mocking me pretty heavily. And when I had over 100,000 subs. And when you get 100,000 subs on YouTube, you get a plaque, a silver play button, right? So I got mine in 2016. And when I did my unboxing video, I cried during it because a few months prior, I had been swatted. So like, and that is when someone calls the police and say, you know, you're going to do something really bad. And the SWAT team comes to your home. And I
So they
viewed
came
that.
to your, wait, were you in LA at that point
No,
still?
I was outside of Portland. I was in
So
Beaverton.
this is swatting in Portland.
This is swatting in Portland. Yeah.
Okay. And this was
So,
when? 2000 when?
March 2016.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's 5 years ago. So yeah, ended up coming to my door, putting a gun on my face, all that shit. And just like, you know, that messes with you, man. You know what I mean? Like that messes with you. I didn't process it properly. So I when I got the silver play button, like a lot of those emotions came out and I started crying. And I uploaded it, not feeling ashamed, but then people started weaponizing that against me. And that, you know, wounds your ego, right? So
Yeah.
I was getting harassed by like these guys every single day, and it kind of started to spread outward. And there's a whole thing there. But anyway, I reported some videos for harassment, and that ultimately came out in a very embarrassing way. And people took it and they ran with it in ways that, like, if you know anything about cancel culture, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like the stuff that they said that was like the blatant lies they made up. I mean, the mistruths that they everything I'd ever said in the past was warped and twisted. They tried claiming that that I was like a pedophile. People were trying to contact like the local CPS to get them to come and like look at my kid because I was a primary care provider for my daughter at the time. And it's just like, you know, like a ton of shit. And it ended up like costing me about like 80% of my revenue, you know, like, and I'd already taken a hit from the year before. This just crippled me. So, and so even now, that channel, I can't even go. The other night, it'd been a long time ago. The other night for fun, I did a live stream on that channel, kind of inviting chaos because I was in a mood and, you know, want to fight people. So why not? So, but no one did, thankfully. But then the comments after the fact are all just like, F you, why are you here? You should kill yourself, things like that. And that is literally all the comments I get on that channel for anything. So it's like that channel is dead. Those years of building, those years of everything, it's dead. It's gone now. But I have my movie channel, which they surprisingly left alone. Weird. And I've been building that up, and that's where I do now my nightly podcast called Hollywood After Dark, where we talk about movies and I make really terrible jokes.
Yeah. Did you ever feel, obviously when you got swatted, that was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel personally threatened? Like, did you ever feel like that your safety or your family was in danger?
No, not really. Not to the extent of what you might assume. Cause like a lot of these guys are they're too cowardly to actually come to your house themselves. Right. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when everything happened a couple years ago, I was doxxed, like my address, my phone number, everything.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up getting a handwritten death threat mailed to my home, which is kind of like marginally impressive. I'm like, really? Like you actually took the time to write it and like send postage? All right. You know, and I just like thought that was super weird, but it's like, for the most part, no, I don't really think people are going to come to the house. I'm still very wary. We have security cameras, you know, we take precautions.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, cause I live kind of remote. If I'm driving home and there's someone that's following me for more than like 2 minutes, I'll take an alternative route to get home. And
But
so
you were this is a freaking podcast. This is a freaking video. You weren't, I mean, that's what blows me away about it is you weren't divulging nuclear. You're not Edward Snowden. You're not you're not divulging secrets. You're not even tweaking. It's not like you went up and tweaked Donald Trump's nose virtually or something, or any of these powerful figures, and you still had this happen to you. These things were happening to you. It's that blows my mind.
it's because when there is nothing, people will fill the void. And so that's a lot of what cancel culture is, right? A lot of cancel culture is just people that are trying to feel like they matter, like something, an opinion, or they have a voice in something. Because a lot of people out there, and this goes back to our education system, we never teach what it means to be happy. We always teach it that like we should never be thankful for what we have, really, or we should always be mindful of what we have. You know, it's always like, well, don't brag about having something. Always be mindful of what you have and others don't. And it's not. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You should always be very mindful and try not to hold anyone back or whatever, or make anyone feel bad. But we also never teach kids that it's okay to go after your dreams, that it's okay to go after what you want. Not to say that you have to drop everything and do it, or, go into massive debt. It's always going to be a struggle, but we don't really teach anyone that, which is one of the reasons why I think gurus like Gary Vaynerchuk are as popular as they are. And I like Gary V, but if you really listen to what he says, it's the same kind of rhetoric packaged in a way that's meant to make you feel guilty about yourself. And he does that in order to make himself sound better, but also on your level. But you can tell he's pretty affluent and he's never really had struggle in his life.
Yeah. There's some people out there like that I read and that I listen to that I respect, who I think there's certain ways of going about things, there's certain tools, there's certain approaches that people can teach. But when they stand there and they're like, oh, I'm on my yacht and I have this and you can have this too, and it's just because you're lazy, it's just because you have it. Well, yeah, and you were born rich and you were, you made your money off the backs of other people making money. I was listening to some podcast the other day and they said something like 80%, and I'm not exact on that number, of the wealth of billionaires in the United States is made through finance. So it's basically made on making bets on other people's money, not through hard work, not through creating something.
No, I mean, like, what, Kendall Jenner is a billionaire, like, again, going back to the conversation from earlier, right? Like, what got Kendall Jenner to the point of being a billionaire? It's like, wasn't like she wasn't already affluent. It was that her sister created a sex tape and that put a spotlight on the family. And then they were able to use that as a way to, become these massive influencers and utterly horrible people, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially Kris Jenner.
But now that's part of the problem is now that, like you said, kids are taught now, like when you and I were growing up, if you were taught, you want to be successful, be a sports, be a sports all-star, be a star baseball player, be an actor, be a politician, be a leader of industry. Like those were the goals. That's the way to really achieve fame and fortune. Now it's get 1 million people on TikTok. Well, 1 million people on TikTok isn't even that much, but score a certain number of views, be an influencer. That's how you can achieve those goals.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like the number one, if you were to ask kids now, like what job that they want, when we were kids, I mean, and you're a few years older than me, but we still kind of come from roughly the same generation, or similar at least. Back then it was like, I want to be like a policeman, or I want to be a movie star. That was big when I was a kid, but it was like, now it's like, I want to be a TikToker, or I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be an Instagram influencer. And it's like, for one, none of you little bastards even understand the first iota of what it takes, because it is not easy. It is not easy. And people out there, I mean, it looks effortless, but that's the look, and it's all fake, and but it also really, really ruins people, because it turns you into like this massive workaholic, and you only look at things through those particular lenses. But it's, but the thing is, back to your point, it is not like, we're not really teaching kids to go after, like a trade. It's like, I just want to be popular, because they need validation. And then you have to look at it from the aspect of, well, is this like generational trauma? Because I think that's kind of a good way to look at it, is you look at it like, okay, were they like not really looked after as a kid? Were your parents latchkey kids? Because that was big during my youth as well.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like being latchkey and whatever, and like you just don't get that validation from your parents as often. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with it.
I think so. I think it's the digital. It's just the life is digital now, and that's the way that they interact. So it's a new money system. It's a new quote unquote money system. It's a new value system,
or social currency.
Social currency, perfect. Thank you.
And believe it or not, like the way China's adopting it, that's a reality, and that's pretty frightening. Because that's going to come here eventually. Social credits, right? Like,
oh yeah, it's like that Black
Mirror episode. That episode gave me fucking anxiety.
Oh, because it's true, and it's already happening. We've seen it started happening.
Well, I was an Uber driver I do Uber Eats right now. I deliver food through them, and thank God I'll never drive another person again in my life. But pay me to bring you McDonald's. It's like, yeah. I mean, I made $20 last night taking a guy to a truck stop, Panda Express. It was like 4 miles away. You know, I was like, all right, cool. But anyway, yeah, that episode got me because when I was an Uber driver, they rate you, 1 to 5 stars, right?
Hmm.
And so they want you to stay within a certain margin. And if you get underneath that margin, they can terminate you. And so when I was doing it, I was like, I'm like, oh, I'll be real polite and whatever. Someone might knock me down, like give me 3 stars or 4 stars. And I don't know why or what happened. And so you get really paranoid over that. And so you kind of start obsessing over that. Like I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I would check is like, okay, did anyone give me a 5-star rating? Like it's started mentally like impacting me because I felt like I had to kind of like serve this master to have value within this gig that I was doing, you know? And then here it is multiple years later and I've been doing the food stuff and I'm going to get you your food, but I also don't really like care anymore about that because like it doesn't impact you really at all.
Well, let's take a step further too, because so you've got this social currency for people that want to be influencers and want to make their mark on the world through one of these platforms. And now you've got a situation. So Flash, we were talking about 2016, 2017 when you went through what you went, and even earlier.
Yeah.
Let's run up to today. And now you've got people that, okay, yes, a lot of what the social media influencers do are dances and fashion and, body image and all that different stuff. That's what sells, or boobs. That's what sells on TikTok. But
you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna
oh
lie.
my God, when I first signed up for TikTok during the midst of the pandemic, and the funny thing is, it automatically assumes you're a 21-year-old man. It doesn't. It just does. It's like the default setting.
Well, it plays to your lizard brain, right?
Oh yeah, and
it absolutely is like you're a dude.
Yeah,
you like boobs.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And everything that comes through for like the first day is just breasts, dancing, breasts, silly jokes, breasts. I mean, that's all you see in your feed until the algorithm starts kicking in and it says, oh, well, you're interested in this, and you search for this, and then it gets to stuff that you actually care about. But so aside from all of that, now we're in a situation where let's say somebody wanted to be a political analyst, and there are those coming up that want that, and they start posting certain things, their social currency can include the fact that somebody can take that away. And for example, the Wuhan lob theory is something that has been rattling around in my brain of late. Yeah. And there's this whole thing, the whole idea that we've gotten to a point now where we are entertaining the theory seriously that the COVID virus started in a laboratory in Wuhan. That is now in the public discussion. It is now pretty much everybody agrees it is more likely than not, and it is a distinct possibility that that's where it started. We can actually have the discussion. Not even more than that, we've discovered that the United States helped pay for the lab, which is like a whole other thing. But 6 months ago, if you posted something online discussing this, you could actually have it taken off. You actually had it taken off social media. It was being censored.
Yeah, for a while there it was, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you are someone, not only do you have the social currency of am I a good person? Am I, towing the line? Now you've got the kind of thing like, is what I'm posting acceptable to the masses or those who choose what is allowed to be posted? I was reading this morning about a New York Times reporter who 6 months ago was going on and on about how the lab theory was racist. And everybody jumped on it and said, yeah, it's racist. And now we're looking back at it being like, well, no, it's not. It's an actual discussion. Was it a possibility? Did it happen? Is it more likely than not? So 6 months ago, there were people that were in social media who were getting their feeds wiped because they were entertaining these theories because they came from the wrong sources. The idea was being touted by the wrong people.
Well, and that's kind of the algorithm, right? I mean, look at YouTube. Okay. So remember after the 2016 election when you know, you had all the reports coming out talking about Russian interference on social media,
Mhm.
and especially predominantly Facebook and Twitter. And there's been a lot of pushback about that from certain people. They go, "No, it's not real. It not happened." All right, like it happened. But the thing is that the one element of that I thought was very fascinating that no one ever talked about was the YouTube. YouTube is so easy to game if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you this from firsthand experience. So in the fall of 2016, I'm a pro Bernie guy, but I didn't like Hillary. And so I was kind of like, I was making anti-Hillary videos, which brought me a lot of pro-Trump supporters. And from there, it was a lot of attention, a lot of money, a lot of kind of power came from that. Maybe like I was commanding this, like, you know, people were really wanting me to talk about this. And then but it was kind of guiding me towards being more open-minded to Donald Trump. And I remember specifically talking about like his 100-day speech in November of 2016. I listened to it and I said, you know what, maybe he's got some ideas. Maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt. Give him a shot. And at the time, I'm like, do I actually believe this? Or am I just saying it? You know, because I'm trying to appease an audience because this is meant to be entertainment.
Right.
Well, in early 2017, after he was inaugurated, I started criticizing him. And I started getting like mass unfollows and mass unsubscriptions and mass downvotes and people not liking it. And then what that does is it because of how we view that system of likes, dislikes, comments, whatever you want, subscriptions, whatever. So many people put value on that. And so at the time I was like, oh shit, I'd better maybe like not criticize him as much because I'm losing what I built. You know, and that of course is like, you know, after a while I kind of said, F it, I'm just going to do it anyway because I don't really care. I'm not going to compromise my values in order to appease other people. But the way the algorithm operates is that if you watch something from, let's say, an alt-right person, and then you start, you know, you interact with it, YouTube will start serving you up more of that content. And then it keeps getting autoplayed and autoplayed and autoplayed. And it's not hard to go down that rabbit hole, especially when it came to QAnon getting into the wellness community on Facebook. That was how it really spread. Is a lot of those like yoga moms, whatever, vegan moms, they got into QAnon because it got into those communities and it just spread like a virus. Yeah. Same with YouTube. It was, and I tell everybody, I was like, no, they never looked at YouTube. I would love it if they would ever come out and say YouTube was a problem. But I think Google has done a lot to maybe suppress that from coming out. Because, you know, you can look at we look at it now and you'll see reports say, oh, well, the algorithm has radicalized people. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. January 6th would not have happened if YouTube would have paid the hell attention to what's going on. You know, because it's not all Facebook. It's like, look, they might look at it on Facebook. They might look at it on Twitter. But where they get that message repeatedly beat into their brain is through watching videos on YouTube.
Yeah, because Facebook surrounds you with people who are like you.
Yeah.
So you have to become more of some. So it feeds itself.
Yeah.
So if you go into YouTube and start looking at these videos and then you get it beaten into you, then you're going to go back to Facebook and you're going to have new friends who also believe. You're going to meet people, then you're going to Facebook friend them, and then they become part of your algorithm on Facebook. Now you're going to be surrounded by them, and then more people like them and more messages like them because now you're in that rabbit hole. You have to get into the hole, but once you're in the hole on Facebook, then it cocoons you up with more and more of what you are used to. You don't see, like, you don't even see, my God, I probably see the same 10 people in my Facebook feed, and I've got, I don't even know, thousands of friends, but I see the same 10 people and that's it. You know, I'm even surprised.
I don't see that many anymore. Cause I also, if you notice, I don't really post on Facebook. So
you don't.
I stopped years ago.
Into the woods up there. You're going to go and hang out
okay
with Bigfoot and
hey, that'd be great.
We're going to see you. Do you think, well, what do you think about, do you think Facebook should be broken up?
You know, interestingly enough, no. I don't really have a problem with the concept of a monopoly. I know maybe I should, but a few things, look, in reality, this kind of shit is inevitable. And the reason why I say that is because where we go is where it is the most popular. And the most popular are generally places that have got the user base. They get the user base, they get the ad revenue to promote it further. If you substitute one, we're just going to go to another one. You know, I mean, MySpace, Friendster, Facebook. I mean, you know, there's a Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, or whatever. It's just different platforms, but they all go back to the same general thing. The same kind of company owns them. So it's just say hi to the new boss, same as the old boss sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you're never really going to get away from it. So I think it's kind of a pointless argument to go, oh, well, let's break them up. Like, well, what exactly are you breaking up? How is this going to play in? Like, okay, so let's say Facebook. All right, so what are you going to break up about Facebook?
Well,
WhatsApp?
okay, so the first thing that people say would be Instagram. Break Instagram off. That just needs to be a separate entity.
See, I think that's kind of, I mean, they don't have the same amount of user base, and they also appeal to different clientele. And they're not necessarily the most, like, they are connected to an extent. Like, I have an Instagram business account, and you have to tie it to a Facebook fan page, which is like cool. But at the same time, it's like I never really use the Facebook fan page because that's simply designed as a way to bilk money out of me. And you know, with Instagram, it's the algorithm's a little bit better. So you have the choice of where you wanna cultivate your audience. And they don't really, I mean, they try to financially force you into using them, but you don't have to. And I think that's like, again, that's their platform, you know. But I will say this, as much as I'm like the whole breaking up the monopoly thing as whatever, I do think that if they collect my data and sell my data, I should either have the option of opting out or get a fucking paycheck. You know, because I know that sounds weird. It sounds weird. It's like, if you're going to sell my data, then what are you giving me for it?
But that's okay. But that's one of the arguments, is that when all of the internet started, not when Al Gore pulled it out of thin air, supposedly, but back when services really started getting started, we made this sort of devil's bargain where we said, we want all of this for free, but it has to be paid for with something. So we're going to pay for it with our data. That way we don't have to pay for Facebook. We don't pay for Instagram. We don't pay for these services. And I've heard that argument before. Would you rather pay $1 a month for Facebook, but none of your information gets sent away so they can make money? Or would you rather have it as a free service and they make money off of your data? And most people say make the money off the data. I don't want to pay the $1 a month. It's not worth it.
I'd pay the $1 a month.
I think you're in the minority, though.
Yeah, I would. I'd pay the $1 a month.
It's not a judgment. I think you're in the minority.
Yeah, I would
don't
pay.
know if
I'd
I
pay
would
the
pay
$1
for Facebook at this point, though.
Oh God, no! Delete my account, please. Just take it out back and kill it like Old Yeller.
Unless they tried to say, oh well, you know, we're integrated with all of these other sites and your password and all these other apps.
No, that's a problem.
Now it becomes freaking Microsoft.
Yeah, I will say this though: the Facebook integration via different websites, I never do that. You know, well, maybe I've done it on like one or two, just like accidentally when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for the most part, when they're like, would you like to log in with Facebook? I'm like, no, I will. I have email accounts I use for these sort of things. I want this stuff separated because I do, you know, I don't mind them owning the companies, but what I do with my data is up to me. And I will do with it what I need to. I don't need them holding my hand, but I understand at the same time that there are people who are just technologically illiterate. People who just don't want to learn. They just want it easy. And I don't fault them for that. You know, like I'm almost 40 and I've tried to understand Snapchat. And I look at that thing like a caveman would looking at fire for the first time. What is this? I am trying to figure out TikTok. And I like TikTok for the way I can easily create content. My God, I can easily bang out a video.
Yeah.
And I love that. And so it's like, that's great for me. But it's like there's so many filters and things, and I'm like, I'm like, fire, you know, like just give me this. I just want this one right here. This one works for me. I don't need anything else. But I think, like, again, as technology expands and as we get older and the younger generation kind of grows up with it, this is just going to be the norm. I'm wondering how much of these conversations are rooted ultimately in fear of the unknown versus understanding of the reality that we're in. Like, remember AOL, like back in the day, right? Like we got the AOL discs in the mail and there was like all the fear, like the predators are coming, you know, and it's like all that stuff. There was all the fear mongering. I mean, fear mongering is nothing new at all. Like it's
so
not
fear
new.
mongering in connection to Facebook.
Well, there's fear mongering in regards to Facebook, right? There's fear mongering in regards to Twitter. There's a lot of fear mongering in regards to YouTube. There are legitimate issues with YouTube and the sexual, with profiling of children and things like that.
Oh,
That
the
does need to
dark
be
side of it.
the dark side of this kind of stuff. There's a lot of dark sides. There are
Yeah.
groups on Facebook that do a lot of horrible things. A lot of those guys have now moved off of Facebook. They've gone over to like Discord or Telegram or Parler or whatever the right wings are, and a lot of them are over there, and they eventually get caught because somebody kind of leaks everything. But really, it's but there's always been that fear. But when I say fear, like go back to the 1970s, and you had your religious right wing, and they were like, if you listen to rock music, you're gonna go to hell. And then get to the end of the 80s or the early 90s, you got Joe Lieberman and Tipper Gore like rap music is Satan, and like all that kind of cancel culture shit started with the right. It's always been the right, and the left is just doing it now, and
Cancel. I don't think cancel culture is new by any means. It's
oh
just
god no.
finally gotten a platform. It's finally gotten a place where they can actually. It's the like you said. It's the parents outside the Kiss concert with the megaphone, going "Knights in Satan's service," and now that megaphone is the internet.
Yeah.
And now people are listening, and lives get destroyed by it. Now, the argument is how many of these lives that are getting destroyed by it deserve it? Is there a spectrum of responsibility? Let's call it a spectrum of responsibility. So if you do something, if you're Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby, are you at one end of that spectrum, or are your actions should they receive as much discipline, as much of a reaction as somebody who did something that we would consider on down the spectrum of reprehensible actions? And I know Matt Damon said something like that once upon a time and got lambasted for it.
Yeah, well, they thought he was defending Bill Cosby, I think, the problem though, look, the problem is in many instances, information is not garnered via reading; it's garnered via headlines, and headlines are written by editors who are trying to make it as sexy as possible in order to get you to click on it, in order to get that ad dollar and to also harvest whatever data that they can.
Right.
That's the purpose of it. So really what there needs to be here is like a lot of that looking at these outlets and like, all right, hold on here. Maybe like tone it down a bit, but you can't, because then that would be considered censoring of the media. And that would be a First Amendment violation if that was put on by the government. But these, private companies could easily do that. They could easily sit there and say, hold on, like tone back the sensationalism. And they, I don't know. I mean, it's hard because some of those headlines are just funny. They get your attention. I love the New York Post's headlines.
Oh, they're classic.
Because it's so crazy. You're like, wait, this guy did what now? And that gets your attention. So you click on it. The same thing with YouTube. YouTube is very similar in regards to the headlines, to the title. It has to be like something that gets your attention as well as the thumbnail. And that's part of the game, so people are going to go sexy with it. They're going to go over the top with it. They're going to do whatever as a way to get you in that door. The problem in many instances, though, is as these things tend to progress, and it's not just like YouTube, it is a lot of these outlets as well. They start realizing that the more sensational they go, they're able to garner that negative attention, which will then result in outrage clicks and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So there begs the question: is where's the responsibility? Because, like you said, like the New York Post, great example, and they're not the first to do it. That people have been doing crazy headlines on newspapers as long as there's been newspapers. Yellow journalism going back 100 years, further than 100 years, going back basically since the first newspapers were printed. So you go back hundreds of years, and some of the stories even back. You hear these tales of the Boxer Revolution and other historic events that were made up. Not the event wasn't made up, but the way the coverage was made up in American papers, because journalism was a kind of a fuzzy word. It was more.
Yeah. What was
Mark
the
Twain.
William Randolph Hearst thing? He like created a fake war in Central America.
Yeah, you send me the photos. I'll give you the war.
Yeah.
Kind of the thing. So, so there's a proud tradition of crazy headlines, in real newspapers, let alone, remember Bat Boy and the Weekly World News.
God, I missed
those
that.
kind of stories. So you get all that, but what would happen with the New York Post, for example, is you would see the crazy headline, you would pick up the newspaper, you would read the story, and you realize by the third or fourth graph what was going on. And even if it was written a little outlandishly for some of the reporters that worked over there, you'd still get the gist of it and realize what it was going on. But now, like you said, we've got clickbait. Click on this story, look at these. Hey, you'll never believe photo number 20 to get you through. And there's only 19 photos.
I hate those because I fall for that sometimes.
Oh, I saw one the other day. Is wish Richard Gere a happy 89th birthday. And I went to Wiki because I was like, he's not 89. He's like 71, I think. I'm like, this is who wrote this? But
yeah,
it caught my attention.
I saw one the other day.
For that.
Well, I saw one the other day. It was like remembering the stars we've lost in 2021, and it had like Liv Tyler on the thumbnail.
I see those all the time.
And I'm like, she's still alive. What the fuck?
And I wonder, is that like the AI is an actual person sitting down and being like, I'm gonna get him with this one. They're gonna think Liv Tyler died.
You know what? I think it's I think these people don't care. I don't think they happen in the country, to be honest with you. I think a lot of this stuff is all done through farms overseas. You can go on Fiverr and you can like buy a bunch of those kind of things for cheap, and a lot of times it's just being done in India and in other countries. Like,
say, I don't believe you.
Yeah,
no.
it's just like there are people out there that, and the thing is, like, they do this because they're trying to understand. Obviously how the algorithm works. They're trying to pique people's interest, and that's actually one of the reasons why, like, I've lost a lot of interest in YouTube, and like general news coverage as a whole. And it's like for one, it's like I cover movies predominantly. No one really cares about what A24 is doing next. No one really cares about, like, what's it? Paul Thomas Anderson has a new one today. Licorice Pizza trailer dropped. If I talk about that on my show tonight, literally no one is going to care. Because the audience that is really active on YouTube in these circles, they just want superhero stuff. They want big tentpole franchises, which is exactly what the studios want. That's where they want your attention. But it's like literally all the time. And because that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the views, is like either attacking those companies. That's a big one. Like attacking Star Wars is a very large and profitable, thing to do on the internet. I
can understand that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I did pretty well going after The Last Jedi. I was so mad at that movie. But then again, like, today I finished up watching Star Wars Visions and I had a lot of fun with it. So, I prefer things where we are now than where we were. But anyway, it's a lot of like, I want to do like storytelling, so I've been trying to like get into the podcasting side of it, where I like true crime. I like journalism. And I want to like
be really into we're alive. Is that what it was called?
Oh yeah, the zombie podcast. Yeah, I know. I was working really on my own. That. Yeah, I like zombies. I don't want to say I dipped out of the zombie genre. Or I just kind of like, I want to find a way to bring it back. But again, I feel like it's so oversaturated. Even
how
now,
I feel about superhero films.
Yeah, and I love superhero stuff, but it is the coverage of it's oversaturated. Because I'll tell you this right now, all anyone cares about right now is what could potentially be. So it's like, there's this service that I was using for a while. It's called vidIQ, and they just launched a new AI-driven idea generator. And what it is you put in keywords of your interests, and it will find similar channels, and it will then analyze the subjects they've covered, and then it will give you ideas based upon what they've covered that's done well for them. Right. So it's not even pushing like original content. It's like, how can we give you an idea that's kind of recycled, but apparently will do well in the algorithm?
That's the new thing. That's because I had a meeting with a South Korean company that is now doing sales for movies based on AI. So they plug in all the keywords on a film, and the AI tells them if it's a saleable idea and who they should be able to sell it to, or whether they can. So you make a movie now, and it's not even a person that's saying, "Oh, well, we're going to go to this territory." It's a computer. It says, "Nope, no good."
Well, but not only that, Warner Brothers is doing that now to pick what kind of scripts to write and what kind of films to greenlight. Warner Bros. And they wonder right now, maybe, why maybe like they're not doing as well as they used to. It just, like, when I read that article, I just thought about that episode of South Park with Osimo, And it's like Adam Sandler falls in love with the toaster, also played by Adam Sandler. And it's like, this is a brilliant idea, you know?
There's
And
a
then,
there's a TikTok video I have to send you about basically it's a guy who does that. And what he does is he fakes that he sniffs a bunch of cocaine. And then he goes, "Okay, give me a star, Vin Diesel." Okay, so Vin Diesel's on a rocket, and he does the whole thing.
well, you know, and
Exactly
actually,
what you're talking about.
I wanted to do that. Back in '09, I had this idea for a show called The Pitch, and it was just going to be like this one-shot vlog from inside of a car, and it's just going to be this like writer, but his like uncle is like a really, really powerful executive, like a Harvey Weinstein type, right? But without the rape. And and he was just gonna call him and like leave voicemails for his uncle, and it was just gonna be like the most absurdly terrible films. He's just doing like pitching these movies to his uncle, hoping that he'll one day go, oh, I want to buy that idea, you know. But like this guy's like the village idiot type. I guess I overshot or undershot TikTok by like a decade.
You did, man.
I did. I really did. It's like I'll tell you
ahead
this.
of your time.
I started my very first podcast was a gaming podcast called Twisted Joystick that we started back in the beginning of 2007. And it was the same week Kevin Smith started Smodcast.
Ooh.
I was like, you know what? I'm all like, I'm on the right track. Should have stuck with it, man.
Who do you listen to now? Who do you think's doing it right?
Oh man, I'll tell you who. You know, here's the thing. I listen to a lot of YouTube. It's predominantly where I listen because that's my ecosystem. I have trouble because I go out and I do delivery driving, and I'm telling you, like the easiest form of delivery is YouTube, because you can easily upload. You know, take the audio, put it behind, you know, just a still image or whatever, and then, you know, you can run it. What I do is I do a show called Podio Commentary, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. But the idea of it was I want to talk about how films are made, you know, like just the production history, not like the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like I started. So at first I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit down and I'm gonna bring up the Wikipedia, and I'm going to kind of use it as a framework. And I'm just going to kind of like write about what happened and retell it in my way. And then, you know, and then record it in my way. And I would like, you know, write up a 5,000 word script, throw it into an online teleprompter, read the teleprompter, record it. And then I would run it through another program called OBS, where I have a you know, a spectralizer, right? Or audio visualizer. And then I'd record, you know, run that through that. So I'd have the audio wave file, and then I'd be able to build something with it. It's a whole convoluted process. But my whole point though is just, now I want to do it to where it's more conversational like this, where it's just kind of riffing off of the information and providing my thoughts and opinions, because it's more, it doesn't come across as structured. It doesn't come across as I don't want to say rigid, but kind of like, I don't sound like me when I'm reading off of a teleprompter. You know, it sounds like I'm trying to perform versus just like, hey, let's just kind of have a beer, smoke, and a chat about this movie. And that's the kind of thing I want to do, because I think that's more in line with just trying to build a community of people that just want to have something to listen to that they enjoy, but it doesn't feel like it's regimented.
I think you're onto something. I think that's the way it's going. Excuse me. I think that's the way it's going, because, you know, I know it's not any big surprise, but, you know, I listened to a lot of Joe Rogan lately, and
how's that for your brain? I'm just curious, because like it
reminds me a little bit of like Howard Stern, believe it or not, because it's that whole like, after a little while, I'm like, I got to turn this off. I had enough.
Okay,
but I give him, you may not agree with a lot of what he says, but he's always like, look, this is just my opinion. He's usually pretty even keeled about stuff until it's something he's passionate about.
Yeah.
You know, I've been listening. I was listening to one of his UFO episodes, and I found it interesting because apparently he and I were very into UFOs around in the late 90s at the same time, X-Files, all that stuff. And it was interesting to hear him be like, look, you know, it's not that I believe, I just believe that there's a possibility, and here's the videos and the evidence and what's come out. Let's have the discussion. And I'm like, awesome, have the discussion. And I think too many people come on and they're like, I have this deep-seated belief. And it's like, no, have the discussion and be open to the change. And I think people want more of that conversation. And I think that's why Joe's show is very popular. I'm a fan of Russell Brand's stuff that he's been doing recently.
Okay.
I started listening to Crystal Ball.
I like
Her
Crystal
show's very
Ball
interesting.
less since she left The Hill, you know, but I've also like I mean, I got turned on to Crystal Ball by when she was on Bill Maher.
Mhm.
And then I found The Hill Rising, listened to them. Like her and Sagar have a good dynamic.
They do.
Um,
They do. And supposedly now they're like they don't take ads. It's all
it's all
subscriber based.
And that's, well, here's the thing with that too. That's going to have to be the wave of the future. Like that's honest to God what I want. I don't want to rely on ads anymore. Because for one, it's not reliable. Like with Hollywood After Dark, like I have a small audience of people. I stream 5 nights a week and I make, you know, between like 70 and $100 a night in tips. That's my take home. And then on top of that, I go out and I do a couple hours of delivery driving, and that's basically how I earn my money right now. What I'd love to do is get to a point of where like I've got the support financially. And I don't even need like that much, to be honest with you, to like be able to just sit there and do this full time and not have to worry about it and give the audience something. Because I feel that people, what they're wanting right now is, I think, like, I'll be honest, I think people are really fucking lonely is what I think it is. And I think it's not just the pandemic. The pandemic added to that, but it's been this social dilemma for years where we are, you know, more isolated than ever before, because it's like we just prefer to kind of be in this bubble that we've cultivated. But I think people are like really just lonely, and they want something to play in the background. They want something to feel like they're not alone. And we see this with like the younger generation now. If you look at like dating isn't really dating anymore. Dating's Tinder. Like, hey, let's hook up and smash.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not even really against that by all means, but it's like we have seen a decline in marriage. We've seen a decline in birth rates, actually, in some capacity. Because I just worked for the census last year, so you know, you learn a bit. And it's not just here in the States, but it's all over. Japan is in dire straits. Norway is begging people to get married and have children. So it's like this is an ongoing problem, and I think a lot of it has to do with just like this. You know, we're not really bringing people together as much anymore, and I don't know what to do about that outside of just offer up my kind of half-assed, you know, like jokey self, right?
Okay,
like,
but let me play devil's advocate for this
Sure.
a little bit. So these communities that are springing up for exactly that reason are becoming more and more specific. And it doesn't matter if you're looking at podcasts or YouTube videos or streaming services. It's getting to the point where let's break it down. Okay, I like romantic comedies. Okay, I like romantic comedies set in the United States. Now there's a streaming service for that. Okay, I like romantic comedies set in the United States that take place during Christmas. Okay, well, there's a streaming service for that. Okay, I like romantic comedies that takes place in the United States at Christmas, and the woman is under 5'5". Okay, well, there's a streaming service for that. And you can break it down and break it down and break it down. And now you're starting to have all these channels that are so narrow that these communities are becoming smaller and smaller. One, you're not getting any external ideas. There's a whole argument on Netflix. You never see anything on Netflix that is outside your algorithm, and you're missing out on all these other films that are supposedly amazing because it's not catering to you.
And they also don't market for shit.
Right. Oh,
outside of Sunset. Like they will market like crazy in LA. When I was there,
oh yeah, it's everywhere here.
I was taking an Uber or a Lyft down Sunset Boulevard to hang out with my friend Maddox, and I'm just seeing like ads for Netflix everywhere, and I'm like, where is this in the rest of the country? Like, what are you guys even doing? Like, you know, and that's the thing
we got all the voters.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah. That's
but Netflix is famous for saying we're gonna buy our awards, and you know the CEOs quoted it at one point. You know, that's
they're gonna completely burn down the system. But it's they are. But I agree with you.
You have like you got out of it. It's like the way things are working. More people make money off of advising people how to get a meeting with Netflix than the people that actually get the meetings with Netflix. It's insane. There's a whole cottage industry of people who make money just off of offering advice.
Yeah, well, that's actually a lot of the YouTube guru spaces like that too, and I've put a lot of money down that rabbit hole just to learn new things. It's not even like, you know. But then some of the people that I followed a couple years ago that were seemed more like even keel, they've now turned into these like Tony Robbins like motherfuckers, you know. And I'm like, I can't even listen to you anymore. You know, because you're up there just saying the same crap every single day, and you're trying to push out this falsity.
Everybody has a masterclass.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, I bought some books here and there because it's updated content, you know, and so just to kind of keep on the up and up, because you still have to regardless. But you know, yeah, there's a lot of money in that, and I'll tell you, for a while, I kind of wanted to do that myself, not because I was trying to like, you know, bilk anyone out of cash or nothing, because I genuinely do want to help people, and I like teaching them, and I like learning, and I like giving away that information. The problem is that giving away the information part.
Well, yeah, I signed up for one of those free classes from, I won't name the name, but he's on a very well-known television show, an investor. That's all I'll say. And it was about social marketing, social media, how to grow all that. And it was free, hour-long webinar. And I'm like, maybe I'll learn something. First 20 minutes, they get into it. Basically, their advice was use hashtags.
Yeah.
That was like their advice. And then the rest of it was a sales pitch for a $3,000 service. And then they said, but if you stick around till the end, we'll have a gift for you. And I'm like, all right, I got to stick around. I turned the volume down and I like went through the whole thing. And I believe what it was a PDF that you could download with the secrets of how to use hashtags. That was the gift. And I'm like, and people will sign up for this service. And I was really irritated with that. But back to my point. We got sidelined. So if you keep breaking these groups down into smaller groups, is that sustainable? Because like you were talking about, like the movie podcasts and the movie videos on YouTube about superheroes,
yeah,
you know, or movies like Dune's coming out. I'm really excited about that. I've watched the trailer a number of times. I've listened to a few people like analyze the trailer, but I can only listen to one or two people before they're saying the same damn thing that the last person said.
Yeah.
So how sustainable is that if we have hundreds of channels of people analyzing the next Avengers trailer?
You know, I can tell you what it boils down to. Yeah, it's all personality, right? It's all personality. So, like for example, I was following the Snyder Cut from when it was first, you know, the hashtag was first announced back in 2017, and like I didn't follow it as closely as a lot of other people did, but right before it was announced last year, I started getting into that community, and then I was heavily pushing it because for one, I really wanted to see it. I always have liked Zack Snyder, and I do feel he got screwed over by Warner Brothers. So I ended up getting with those people. But then once the movie came out, I realized that a lot of those guys are absolutely insane. And they just want Zack Snyder to literally make every movie in existence. And so, but I would be like, well, you guys realize that like this is not going to happen, right? Like this is a one and done from Warner's. And then everyone's like, no. They said that the Snyder Cut didn't exist. I'm like, no, that was different. That was filmed. It just needed to be finished. What you're asking for is to create something new out of thin air when Zach is busy with Netflix and he's not coming back to Warner Brothers.
Oh, he's never going back to Warner Brothers.
Like, and then they go, no, but he said he would do it.
No.
Yeah. Well, he also says he would like to make a porno. Like, he just says things like this. Do you not understand that when you go and you talk to a person in Hollywood, like never believe what they say for one, because like they're always going to, you know, they like, this is the thing I hate now too when it comes to movie coverage. It's never about the movie itself that's coming out. It's always about like that question that the reporter asks at the end, you know, like, what can you tell me about this new movie you're going to be in? And then that's what makes the headline. It's not what they're talking about in regards to the making of the film. Yeah. It's always about what more can they get, especially when it says something like with Marvel or DC or some crap.
What's going to set that reporter? What thing are they able to get that actor to say? You know, they're interviewing Daniel Craig talking about 007. Oh, well, he just talked about how he broke Dave Bautista's nose.
Yeah, and that was a head. I saw that headline today.
That was the headline. Yeah, so that reporter is their job is safe at their media outlet for one more day because they had the breaking story.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing too is, and this is where like my whole approach is kind of shifting because you're talking about these like how Netflix, let's say, operates, right? and how like they don't recommend everything. Like I have access to like their media network. I was able to get in and get access to it and stuff. And I look to see what's coming out. And I'll, and the thing is, it's like they don't promote anything really. I mean, like they just did that to dumb thing over the weekend where it was like a lot of geekier stuff. Stranger Things is like their biggest show, or well, I think Bridgerton beat out Stranger Things.
Yeah.
But like Stranger Things is one of their biggest shows, and so obviously that's going to be massive. So they're going to promote that. But look at like let's say F is for Family. F is for Family. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh yeah, love that show.
It's my favorite thing on Netflix. It is. I cannot wait for season 5. I did a review of season 3, and it caught the attention of Michael Price, who is the co-creator, also co-creator of The Simpsons. He followed me on Twitter, and we chit chat occasionally. So I mean, I talked about this from a place of love. Like, and I really talked about like the character growth and what we've seen and things like that. Mm-hmm. And he was impressed by what my analysis of it. And I got followed by the writers and followed by him, and it's like, that's the kind of thing I'd love to do more, is like to actually have these positive conversations, actually talking about these movies, what we like about them, what we don't like, but mostly focusing on like what goes into like, how it makes us feel and things like that. Because what I hate, Eric, is I hate when people diminish a project right off the bat, right? Like they act like it's a singular person did everything, and they'll go, oh, this movie's woke, or this movie is trash. And it's like, you're diminishing the work of upwards of 15,000 people.
Right.
And I know you don't know about them, and you'll never care about them. You'll never know their name, even though it's all listed right there in the end, because that's when you get up to leave. And, but it's like, it diminishes their work, and they have value and they have talent and they put their time in. So it's like, why not go into a movie trying to find something about it that you like? As much as I thought Ghostbusters 2016 was going to be absolute crap, and I tore that movie apart because they just kept making it worse for themselves going up to its release, I still went on the preview night screening, and I went in there saying, please be good. Please let me be wrong. Please be good. And I was not wrong. That movie was bad. But like, that's my whole point, is like, is we have to move the narrative away from the negative. And if you look at what's popular on YouTube right now, and it's not and obviously it doesn't just apply to YouTube, but it's in general, it's all negative. Red Letter Media, what are they known for? Shitting on something. They're popular. They're insanely popular, but all they do is dunk on it.
You don't get you don't get clicks off of, I enjoyed this film.
No, I know.
Or unless it's somebody who is doing one on, let's talk about The Godfather. It's suddenly becomes some cinematic discussion.
Oh God,
yeah. Get those clicks, man.
Well, I was talking about this on my stream last night. I mentioned I've never seen the Rocky movies, and I've never seen the Godfather franchise.
What?
Yeah. I got the same.
I got the same movie show.
Yeah. But I have seen Juwanna Mann like 8 times. So
I may have seen that movie.
I saw we had it at the drive-in in San Diego, and on double feature with Minority Report. So I watched it a bunch back in the day.
There's something odd about that couple.
They were both Warner Brothers. That's why we had it. That's why we had it. They were both Warner Brothers, so we paired them together. I mean, like, I've watched Pirates of the Caribbean like 65 times because we had it at the theater so often. So there's a lot of those kind of movies that I've seen because at the theater this is all we had to do.
It's an odd thing too, because like I have a lot of friends who are in the entertainment industry, obviously, and I have a lot of actor friends and I have a lot of filmmaker friends, and they go on podcasts all the time and they talk about, here's my love of movies. Here's why Citizen Kane is amazing. Here's how this influenced me. Here's what I'm trying to do. Da, 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 da. And they have these incredible, eloquent discussions about an art form. And they're really, really insightful, and it's like almost an inside the actor's studio situation where you're actually able to look into this person's mind, and the podcast will get like 10 listens.
Yeah,
but if they came on and be like, oh well, there was that time I was on the Spielberg movie and Spielberg did this and so did this, and then you haven't heard about this, and let me drop some lore that you don't know. It'll get a huge amount of listens. Or even like Quentin Tarantino went on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And he was on there for 3 hours, and he talks a little bit about his filmmaking stuff, but the parts everybody talks about is when he talks about Bruce Lee, or when he talks about Linda Lee, and he gets into that whole like the discussion and the argument, and so lied about this and so lied about that. That's what gets picked up, the juicy stories.
Well, it's like when Robert Downey Jr. was on there, they were talking about doing Tropic Thunder in modern day, and that's what a lot of people were checking out because of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I get that. And I understand that people are always going to be attracted to the juicy. I think where I'm at now is like, those are kind of like drive-by views, people who just check it out, put it down, move on. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how do you start to build a community of people? How do you build up an audience? Like, I was listening to the Blank Check podcast because they just started posting on YouTube. And again, I don't go looking on iTunes for this shit. I just don't, because I for one, I hate iTunes. I abhor it. I think it's a terrible design. Apple should be shot for making it. But I also have an Android phone, so I can't have access to it anyway. But I just don't go searching for it on there. But if I come across something on Twitter, I might listen to it through YouTube because that's my preferred distribution platform.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, it's like, it's really about just trying to like be consistent, build a community of people, and you can do that. But people like oftentimes lack the patience for it, which is another problem that we have these days. But in the case of, let's say, the Blank Check podcast and a lot of these movie podcasts, it's kind of the same thing as talking about superhero stuff on YouTube. All these guys, they talk about John Carpenter films. They talk about Stephen King films. They talk about Schwarzenegger movies. They talk about these mainstream films that we've all seen like 25 times or more. And so in regards to that, like, it ends up being this, like, it's just kind of a recycling of content because, do you want to listen to a 3-hour conversation about The Thing, or do you want to listen to a 20-minute conversation about The Thing? Mm-hmm. Are you going to end up getting something inherently different from one versus the other? Probably not. The movie's almost 40 years old. Like, what more are you going to be able to get out of it if you've watched?
I agree with you, and I think I'll take it to another level. I think there's a shelf life. I think there's not a shelf life. I think there is a limit to how far you can go with it. And here's my example. There's a show called Movie Sign with the Mads, and it's Frank Conniff and Trace Beaulieu, the two mad scientists from Mystery Science Theater. So they did it for like 4 years, and every week they would talk about a movie. And every movie's different. But if you binge it, or if you sit there and start listing, you realize that a lot of the times they end up telling the same stories. And they end up saying the same things. Or they go, oh, well, that reminds me of a scene in The Godfather. And then he'll tell them about the scene. But then 3 episodes down and be like, yeah, that reminds me of that scene in The Godfather. Da, 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 da. And then he'll do it again. And I think if you don't keep switching up the topics or the current event or whatever you're doing, I think you have a chance of falling into that rut. And after a while, you're just doing the same discussion. It's just a different movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's any show. If it's a cooking show, after a while, yeah, you can keep talking about a different restaurant, but you're going to have the same discussions. It's just a different restaurant or whatever topic.
It's very weird to keep things, or it's not weird. It's very difficult at times to keep it from that. But I think I'll tell you what I think the difference is. I think the difference is passion. Right. And the reason why I say that is because, like, I'll talk about, like, let's say I'll talk about Star Wars or whatever, like, especially The Mandalorian, for example, with some friends of mine. And like, we talk about The Mandalorian a lot, but the more we talk about The Mandalorian, oh my God, the more hyped I get for it. I'm like, oh man, like, remember when that happened or when this happened or when that happened? Oh my God, and so it's like, but for me, I'm a very passionate guy. And I guess you could say I'm easily excitable when it comes to films. I get into them really easy.
Yeah.
And I like to go to that headspace. I like to go there, and I like to get really excited about stuff because I feel like that is what is, like, for one, that's me naturally, that. And also it's like, but I can also then get people in feeling very similar. It's not difficult at that point to find, to kind of tap into that part of someone's brain where you're allowing them to be joyful. And by sharing that kind of experience with them, or having that kind of shared mindset. Like, I think, we go to movies because we want to be entertained. We get into these franchises because we like them. Yeah. So it's like, why not find a way to, like, tap into that stuff? Like, I'm a huge Cloverfield fan. Like, I love Cloverfield. I love talking Cloverfield. But it's like, what? It's not going to be for everybody. but I can get as into Cloverfield as I get into the Marvel movies or as I get into
But
Star Wars.
you couldn't do an entire show about the Cloverfield universe more than
No,
like
and I couldn't do it
you
more.
couldn't
Yeah,
do an
yeah.
ongoing series on it.
No, you could do a one and done sort of thing. It'd be a
Yeah.
one and done sort of thing. But the great thing about movies is there's a lot of them, and so it's like the people that do like the podcast that are like, oh, we're just going to be breaking down like every single episode of this show. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you're at that point, your show like has a shelf life, like there's these guys I know.
That brings us back to the niche. That brings us back to the what we were talking about how broken down can you get these communities before they're 2 or 3 people, 4 people, how it's not sustainable. People that think I'm going to make a living as a podcaster talking about all of the episodes of Lost from the 2nd season.
I mean, there might be an audience for that. Who knows? Because the thing is, I'm saying, okay, so here's the thing though, right? It's like, again, like Hollywood After Dark, like I get maybe like 70, 80 people watching live a night, and then I still make a decent amount in tips because the people that come in, they like me and they like to support me, and that's how they support me. So I don't need like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Like it would be cool, and I'm not going to turn that down, but you can build it. You just have to be okay with being in that niche.
You're building a small business, basically.
You are,
You're building a little corner restaurant that has your clientele that come in and pay you for what you are providing.
Exactly. And then from there, you can sit there and go, all right, well, we're also opening another show or another store over here that's a boutique as well.
And that's the new model.
And then, well, yeah. And then after a while, that does become quite a bit to kind of maintain. But in the space of, let's say, YouTube, the way the algorithm operates is they don't want you doing different niche stuff, right? Like they don't want you to be a catch-all channel, because if you're a catch-all channel, it's going to end up alienating a decent part of your audience. Because if, let's say, for example, you are a Star Wars channel, you're talking Star Wars 24/7, that's what you do. Then all of a sudden you make a shift and you're talking about Bridgerton, for whatever purpose, whatever reason you want to talk about Bridgerton, but now you're all about Bridgerton. Your audience is not going to come over to that. Maybe a few probably will, but the vast majority of people that come to you for Star Wars are not going to give a crap about Bridgerton.
But that's a flash in the pan. And I don't mean that. I'm not slamming Bridgerton at all. I just don't think we're going to see Bridgerton season 20. Somebody isn't going to do a Bridgerton show that's going to last for 10 years. And I guess maybe that's just the old man in me, but what happened to this idea of like building a show that has legs that's going to go for a while? Maybe that's just naive of me.
It's not naive of you. It's definitely not naive of you. I'll tell you that right now. It's not naive of you. But I think what it is it's just there's a lack of patience that people have, and I have it too. My God, I have it too. I overthink everything. I'm like, why isn't this working?
Why do I have hundreds of thousands of listeners?
Yeah. Because I thought at some point I did, and then I lost them, but I can get there again. But it does require like to kind of sit back and just take it on a day-to-day basis. And that's my biggest problem is I have OCD. So I overthink everything. And it's particularly bad if I am like trying to get something off the ground and I just like, I have an idea, I have a core concept for it. And then I sit there and I'm like, okay, now I start thinking about literally everything else in the world. And I have a lot of trouble focusing. And then when I finally get around to doing it, like it doesn't get a lot of views. It's like, oh shit.
You want
like
those results.
You want those results.
Yeah.
We're instant gratification society. I mean, look, we love the fact that we can go to Starbucks right now and get a coffee instantly. You wait 5 minutes in line, you've got what you want, you're happy, you go home, you do whatever. Yeah. But if, it's like, do you want to make coffee or do you want to go get coffee? And a lot of people out there would say, I just want to go get coffee because I know what I'm getting. I don't have to think about it. I just give them a couple bucks and I have what I need and I'm good. Rather than like sitting there and, grinding up the beans and prepping the everything, doing it yourself. It's just, we are instant gratification. And that especially applies online when we start trying to compare ourselves to other people. And that is another conversation. But like, again, talking about like the beauty standards of Instagram and how that impacts the psyche of young girls out there. Like I have 2 daughters. I will not let them have Instagram. because I don't want them to, I don't want them to go there and like see these women that are photoshopped and think this is the expectation that I have to live up to.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, we don't have that specifically, but what we have are people that diminish your criticism of something or your opinion of something because you don't have the view count as somebody else. As if, and they try that. Like, oh, you don't have the subs of this person. You're just jealous.
But isn't part of that little devil's advocate here, but isn't that part of teaching people to have a thicker skin or to make judgments based on the right thing? Or is it, or do you have to wait until they're ready? Be like, okay, we've installed the tools into you now to handle the world a little better. Now venture out into Instagram, knowing what you know.
Yeah, well, eventually, yeah. I mean, you're not going to be able to like keep kids away because their friends are going to be into it. And when their friends are into it, they're going to get into it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole point. I mean, look at that. Take that approach and apply that then to like how you would then build up a community around a program or a movie or something. Is you have to get people to invite their friend base in, and they have to, word of mouth will sell better than literally any other kind of advertisement. And even
so true.
And that's more apparent now than ever, even though like, I mean, I've been paid thousands of dollars to promote a product that I didn't fucking care about, but I took the money. I got paid $2,500 to like promote this mobile game, right? I didn't fucking care. I played it for like 90 minutes. Caught the footage I needed, did the video. The sponsor was happy. I put it out there. I haven't touched it again, and it's been 4 years. Right? I took my money. You know what I mean? But like, did any of my audience go and download the game? I don't fucking know. I don't care. Really? And that's kind of the problem. Is because like I took the money, I sold them this product that I didn't care about. Was that wrong of me to do? That's debatable. Would I do that now? Again, that's debatable. I where I'm at now versus where I was a number of years ago is different. Like I would now, I don't want to sell somebody something I'm not going to be personally vested in. Because if you, and like, if you're going to come to me and like ask my opinion on something, I want to make sure that like, I'm not going to sit there like, again, it'd be like if Paramount did The Godfather, right? Yeah. Okay. So if Paramount came to me and they're like, Matt, we're doing a 40th or 45th or 50th anniversary release of The Godfather in 4K, and we want your channel to promote it. We want you to be out. We want you to be the face of this thing. I'd be all like, yeah, no, because I've never engaged with it. Like I've just never like, I could watch it now, watch all of it right now, but it's not going to be a cultural thing for me. Whereas,
it will. Well, it'll become a cultural thing.
Yeah, but it's like, but what I mean by that is I wouldn't have like I would know the memes, I would get the references. I know all that stuff, I know to avoid Sofia Coppola at number 3, just don't watch it. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Don't watch number 3.
Don't watch number 3.
Although didn't they just do like aren't they remastering number 3, like to cut her out of it?
He did a reversion. I believe he did a recut of it.
Okay. I need to watch. I should watch that then. To cut out his own daughter.
It's an odd movie.
Just to cut out his own kid.
She was in the second one too, if I remember.
Was she? I thought she was. I thought she was only in the third one. Everyone always tells me about the third one.
No, I'm pretty sure she's in the second one. Is like I think she's the baby that gets christened at one point.
Ooh, wow, that's Oscar worthy performance right there. Yeah.
No, the third one's Anyway, let's not talk about that.
That's a painful subject for a lot of people. But
it's not like you're selling. Now hold on a second, because it's not like you're selling. It's not like Marlboro came up to you and said, "Hey, we have a new vape. We want you to pitch this," and you're like vehemently anti-tobacco, but you're like, "I'll take your money anyway. It's just a show." We're not talking about that. We're talking about something else creatively, a mobile game or a movie where somebody says, "Hey, will you promote, will you promote the Snyder Cut on your show?" "Oh, well, I'm more of a Marvel guy, but I'm not going to turn it down." Whatever. It's basically harmless. Plus, if you watch The Godfather, there's your whole angle is I've never seen The Godfather. I'm going to watch The Godfather, and that'll be my selling point as I'm a new convert.
Okay.
That's what you would be.
So if they came to me and they're like, "Hey, we want you to promote Juno starring Elliot Page," I'd be like, "No, the movie sucked." I'm like, "Well, what? You didn't like it?" I'm like, "No, Diablo Cody's a terrible writer."
I'd be canceled.
Not because of Elliot Page. Elliot Page is fine in the movie. I had no problem with Elliot Page's performance. It's just Diablo Cody is a god awful writer.
Oh, to see that you're never gonna get me into that discussion because that's a minefield.
Do you like Diablo Cody or don't like Diablo Cody?
But still,
well, then we would agree. We would agree.
I don't have enough of a base to have a hatred for her that some other people do.
I don't have a hatred for her. I liked Jennifer's body. How about that? I liked Jennifer's body.
That was because of Megan Fox. But anyway.
I'm more of an Amanda Seyfried kind of guy, but I thought the beats in the film were pretty funny. I thought there was some good stuff there. You know, anyway, I'm just saying
it just doesn't, for me, it's not on my radar, so there's not enough reason to actually get emotionally invested in the discussion.
And I think that's kind of, and I wonder if we've lost a bit of that with movies in recent years, except for like these giant mega franchises like Marvel. Marvel has really brought a lot of that emotion, I think, to the serialized nature of its storytelling, because it's a TV show. Let's be fair.
It is. It's a massive miniseries.
It really is. It's sorry.
I think you're right though, because like, I'll go on record. When Nomadland came out, it was a pretty movie, parts of it, but honestly, I wasn't a fan. But if you came out and said you didn't like Nomadland, what is wrong with you? Because the director, and it was this tale of this underserved community, and it was this search for America and all of these things, and it was like there was no discussion to be had because it was anointed as this perfect art house film, and I'm like, I didn't really care for it. But we don't have those types of discussions anymore. We don't have this discourse.
I did on my show. I didn't see the movie, but I'm like, I don't want to watch it because I read the plot of it. I'm like, look, this movie is depressing from just the synopsis because it's where we are right now in Americana, right? For some reason, Hollywood loves to feel sorry for themselves, right? Yeah. They love it. They love those kind of stories. It's like Francis McDormand, my husband died. The job closed down. I live in my van down by the river and I work for Amazon. It's like, okay, you know what? I understand. I've lost money. I had to go get a job working for Uber Eats. I support my kids. My girlfriend has a job. We struggle to get by sometimes. That's not a movie I want to watch. You know,
she was great. I'll give you she played a depressing character incredibly well. I'm sure. It was the film. The film just to me screamed award bait. It was a very experimental film, and the experiment was so obvious. It's like you know what I mean? It's like if you watch a movie that's experimental and you're like, you get lost in it and you're like, wow, they really like took me away with it. This one just felt like it just screamed to me experimental art film. Isn't it cool what we're doing? You know what I mean? It was like Sky Captain.
See, I enjoyed Sky Captain. I enjoyed Sky Captain. Yeah, that's a weird one.
I did, but you knew what you were watching. And you didn't get lost in it to the point where you were like taken away into the world they were building. It just really felt like, isn't this cool what we're doing? It felt like a big art project.
But also learning the story of how it was made might have influenced our opinion on the film.
True,
because that was
the after story too of like how basically he has never made another movie.
Yeah, well, it's like you had Jude Law and was it Gwyneth Paltrow and Angelina Jolie and is this big type thing. I mean, I don't even know if the thing's on like Blu-ray. I have it on. I bought the DVD when
I know it. I used to have it on Blu-ray. I think it's on Netflix now, or I ran across.
I would love to watch it again.
On Pluto of all places. I saw it on Pluto recently.
I've been a cord cutter since 2010, so I don't have any of that stuff. Like if it's not on the main
Pluto's
channels.
Free, man. It's owned by Viacom, and they put all sorts of fun stuff. I'm a big fan of Pluto.
There's a lot of nowadays I don't know where anything's at. Like I literally will go and Google something like where is it streaming, and you never really know because they all just keep shifting around. I see all these articles every month. Here's what's leaving Netflix this month, or here's what's leaving HBO Max. And it's a Warner Brothers movie. And I'm like, why is a Warner Brothers movie leaving HBO Max? Oh, you guys suck.
What a wicked legal web we weave.
Oh yeah. Well, and again, even then, these streaming companies are like, they're gonna have to deal with the older films and like how things are not what they used to be. Like how the portrayal of things has changed. Like there was a big thing a few months ago about them wanting to change up Gone with the Wind. There was a big pushback against that. So they added a cultural lesson in front of the movie, which I will say I thought was tasteful and I liked it. I thought it was a cool little flash of history, You know.
Oh, it's coming. It's wait until here's my prediction. So, new James Bond film's coming out, and you probably saw the articles the other day about Goldfinger that hit the
Oh
other
yeah, yeah,
day
yeah, yeah, yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
James Bond the
A little
rapist.
rapey. Yeah.
Yeah, which I've been watching again. Shout out to Pluto, who's been running all of the all the James Bond films up to Die Another Day. And you watch the scene with Pushy Galore, and it does have a bit of a rapey feel to it in today's modern society when you watch it and you start to think about it. It can be a little uncomfortable. So, you know, now that all those films are owned by Amazon, is Amazon going to step in and do a little snipping, or are they
Nah,
going to
they don't
put a
care.
cultural notice at the beginning of it?
I don't think so. I don't
You
think
don't think so?
Amazon's going to give a shit. I really don't. I think Disney will, because Disney like has to maintain that image. Jeff Bezos just shot a penis rocket into space a few months ago, so I don't think he cares. To be honest with you, like I don't think he cares at all. Like he has his cock rocket now, and we all have to just live with that. But it's no. I mean, look, Amazon is like they don't. I don't think Amazon gives a crap at all. They don't have to care. To them, the streaming service is just a way to like sell the Prime membership to get 2-day free shipping. That's really what it boils down to.
Okay, but
And
once the public eye is on them, how much there's a tipping point. And
okay, it all depends.
Amazon's in the
Yeah.
news now because they just passed the California break law, which is aimed purely at Amazon about their little trackers that when they run around the warehouse now. So they just passed that law that they're not able to dock people if they don't get to their break on time.
Oh, okay. Well,
They're
that's good.
they're in the public eye. So at what point do people push back and say,
Well, are they going to care more about how they treat their employees or whether or not someone, a white guy dropped the N word in an older movie?
it depends how far cancel
Um,
culture keeps
I
going?
guess.
See
I
how I brought
guess.
that around?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
You
Good
know,
segue
it,
there. There you go.
who does the best video? Who gets the hashtag going of cancel Amazon or whatever that actually gets some traction? Can that happen? Or does Netflix
Well, Netflix
fan
had
it?
cuties. Remember, there was a cuties controversy from last year, and
Oh,
that
that's
was
true. That's
and
true.
and Netflix just came out and they said we support this movie, we like the movie, and they basically gave everyone the middle finger. And there was a huge right wing push to cancel Netflix, and they never mentioned it again. And guess what?
Another.
Neither did anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
it comes
getting
up.
too big to fail.
They are getting too big to fail, and I wish they would start curating their content a little bit more.
Oh,
Uh, but
thank you.
hey, listen,
Underground
was that
Six.
what was? Oh god, that movie was so bad. I was so mad too. I was so mad. I'm like, look, you got Ryan Reynolds, Michael Bay, and Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese. Like, this is a combination. It's Michael Bay Unchained, and I was really wanting to see Michael Bay Unchained. And I'll tell you that Michael Bay wasn't the problem with that movie. The script was the problem with that movie for a couple of reasons. One, it was written like it was a television series, like the first season of a TV show,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese did the exact same thing with Zombieland. Zombieland was meant to be a TV show, but they cut it, they rewrote it into a feature, but they still kept in like TV show elements, like the zombie kill of the week. It made like no real sense in context. It was just humorous, but they wanted it to be a TV show. This was the exact same thing. If you go and you watch the pacing of Six Underground, how it broke into these mini chapters with these backstories on these characters that you don't really care about,
It
but
just
you were meant
exactly. I so
it.
didn't care.
So didn't care, and then it was just bitter and cynical, and like so it's like the scene where like they go to kill the guy and he's having sex with the hooker, and like he's literally like doing her doggy style, and then Ryan Reynolds just starts like waxing poetic with him, and then they shoot him, and then he's like, well, at least he did, at least he didn't finish. And like it was so like just I was like,
Yeah.
like what the hell is this shit?
It's
And
it's the pain and gain side of Michael
but
Bay.
Pain and Gain was good.
It was, but it made you uncomfortable, but in a good way. Like
Yeah,
it was weird. It
it
was
might have been the performances. Mark Wahlberg and The Rock really had these over the top performances. Ryan
oh,
Reynolds was
and it worked. It was going back. It was an experimental idea
yeah.
the way he shot it and he filmed it and tried things, but you were lost in the way it was getting unspooled.
Yeah, this one just didn't do it for me. And when Netflix came out and said we're not moving forward with that franchise, I was like, you know what? Okay.
Well,
I'm
we're
cool
still
with that.
waiting for Bright 2.
Well,
Don't get me started on Bright.
I mean, there is the anime. Simu Liu is going to be doing the main guy in the anime, the animated movie.
No,
It's
no,
coming.
that movie is so no. Don't
That
just
movie,
don't do this to me.
I will say this about this movie, right? Like, I know Max Landis is a piece of shit. Or at least that's what they say. I have a friend who knows him, and she told me she believes everything that was said about him. So, all right, you know, but like, I felt bad for everyone involved in Bright, because when he got Me Too'd, that just killed that franchise. Like, you know,
No,
and
what killed the franchise was the first movie.
I like the first movie though.
It makes no sense.
It makes absolute sense. What are you talking about?
It does not. Hey, okay, what? It does not. All you have to do is ask yourself about slavery and religion, and the whole
is it a very loose allegory for it? Yeah.
Okay, so you tell me. So like, why are there black people in the slums in Bright if there was never any slavery? Let's get into the systemic racism chat.
Well, that doesn't mean that there's not going to
the story.
Well, no, systemic racism still exists. It's just it's more broad, right?
Okay, but you tell me the dragons wouldn't have come in and just taken down the Confederate army?
That's if they had access to dragons. We don't know that.
They do. They're in the thing. You can see them flying in the sky.
Yeah,
in the
they're in the
beginning
background.
of the movie.
They're in the background.
Yeah, I was so underwhelmed.
I need to watch it again. It's been a long time, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was. I look, for one, I'm a big David Ayer fan. Okay, so like I grant him, like, I like 2016 Suicide Squad too. I did. I mean, I want to see the Ayer cut. I want to see what he's going to do with that if they ever release it. I don't know. Who knows? But I always give David Ayer the benefit of the doubt, because Training Day is the shit. So, and also Fury was an excellent movie too.
Yeah.
End of watch.
He's got good stuff. I think you're dealing with studio tooling.
I mean, that's the thing though, is you always have studio tooling, and when it works well, and when it doesn't, you get the Snyder cut.
Do you think we'll get an Ayer cut?
So here's the thing with that. Apparently, like, he says it's done. Like, he says that it's done. He just needs to, like, you know, they just need to approve its release. And again, I'm not too sure how much of that is, you know, needs to be kind of tweaked up or whatever, but he did ultimately put together the cut he wanted to do. Yeah. And Warner's, what they wanted was, they wanted to make it more funny. They wanted to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy, because that had come out a couple years earlier and done very well. So that's what they went back and they retooled it a bit. And there's a lot more Joker in the Ayer cut. And there's a lot more, was it El Diablo Lives in the Ayer cut?
The whole ending's different.
Yeah, and I liked El Diablo. I thought Jay Hernandez did a good job. So I mean, obviously, like, Warner's at this point, with the failure, I don't want to say failure, but with like the substandard success that the Suicide Squad had, which isn't entirely its fault. I mean, you know, Warner's can never market movies to save their damn life anyway. They, you know, I think they might go for it, because Ayer put out on Instagram, I think yesterday, it's like something that was like, stay tuned, things are happening, you know, and that, of course,
would they throw 50 million at Snyder to 70. Do the 70 million? 70. I'm sure he doesn't need that much to finish it up post. But
I'll tell you this though, man, the thing is, here's the biggest interesting thing with the Snyder cut. They never talked about how many people downloaded it and watched it. They never gave out those numbers. Mortal Kombat, Godzilla v Kong, Suicide Squad, they put out that information. They put out those numbers. Yeah. They've never done anything. They've actually done a lot to suppress that film. Never mind, it was on PVOD in other countries, and it sold out it did very well in Canada and in the UK, and I think Latin America and China. My God, it was getting a lot of views in China on one of their streaming services.
Do you think they're scared?
I think what it is not that they're scared. It's that they went a whole different direction after. So everything they're doing now with the DCEU is all based off of 2017's Justice League, which is what we call it in the fandom. So, you know, which is a great name because it works. But what they're doing is they're basing everything off of that. So the Flash movie is based off of that, not based off Snyder Cut. Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, whatever. Even Birds of Prey, which should have never existed in the first place, you know, was something that still followed after Justice League. And even then, the reason why I think when it does for the Ayer cut, why that may take a little bit of time to come out or that may not ever be continued, is because Margot Robbie doesn't want it. And they put a lot of faith and a lot of love into Margot Robbie because of her of how popular she was in 2016. The problem though is that she needs the Joker or something to play off of, because Birds of Prey just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But in regards to Snyder, it's like I think the movie did better than they anticipated. I think the movie did a lot better than they anticipated, and they know what the fans want, but they also don't want to look like they have done anything like wrong. And they don't want to admit fault, because everything that they're building to now is based off of that movie that is a Frankenstein. So it's still kind of set in the same universe, but it's just a little different, you know. But now they've announced the Batgirl movie, which apparently the rumor is that J.K. Simmons is going to come back as Commissioner Gordon.
I'd heard that.
And then they've got the Blue Beetle movie, which is also going to be set in Batman's Gotham. But then you've got The Batman, a whole different universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the Gotham PD show that they're also developing, which is still set in that whole different universe. So what the fuck is going on is my question. Like, Marvel's like, yeah, we know everything's connected. Everything now is way more connected than it was before. We're moving forward. TV shows, movies, you name it. DC is over here like a special needs kid on a playground. Like, you know. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, but if you know anything about the comics, if you actually are a fan of the DC universe and the way they do stuff, it's not that far off from the way they actually do the comics with Elseworld and with
but no one wants Elseworlds. I'm telling you this. The average person in Oklahoma, all right, is gonna who watches this shit is not gonna go to a comic book shop and go, oh, I want to know where we're going in another journey this time. That's actually right now, I would argue, the biggest fault that Marvel's What If has. I like What If quite a bit, but there's been a lot of people I know that are diehard Marvel fans that are having trouble getting into it because it's not connected, because it's separate stories. They're not used to it. They don't want it. They want the long form storytelling.
But they're not real. Then they're Marvel film fans, because What If used to be a huge deal when you were reading comics as a kid. Because it was that sandbox idea of mashups before mashups were a thing. What if Captain America wasn't Steve Rogers? What if, these are those crazy thoughts you had as a kid. So somebody to say, I'm a huge Marvel fan, but they're but I don't like What If because it's too out there. It's okay, well, you're a Marvel cinematic fan. Okay. Admit what you are.
Well, I think at this point they're kind of synonymous, because Marvel Comics have been, they've been taking a bit of a dip. All right. Not only in quality, but I mean, let's be fair. There was a few years there where everything was, kind of a little bit on the further left side of the political side,
Yeah.
And they were there's a comic, I forget which one it is. I think it was Angela Queen of Hell, number 4 or something, where Thor's grandfather was there. Bo Burnson or something. I don't know. Bunnis, I forget. But he has a thought bubble where he starts talking about what's happening on the Gaza Strip. And I'm like, the hell? Why would this Norse god be giving two craps about what happens in the Gaza Strip?
See, that's the bizarre. That's when was that? That was what? 2014,
2015. Okay. There was a lot going on back then.
The Bronze Age. Go back to the Silver Age. Go back to, because I remember I'm dating myself, but I'm going back to the time when I used to read X-Men, when it was, the original Phoenix Saga, the original Brood storyline. That was some crazy shit. And then, it did get into this where, then you start getting into the Ultimates and some of the bizarre stuff that they did. And, our geek flags are starting to really fly here, but
think about it like this though. But the average person has never been into those anyway. All right. Those have always been niche. The niche has grown over the years, and they've been able to maintain themselves in pop culture. But it really wasn't until these things started becoming movies. I mean, go back to 1978, man, or 77, right? It's the original poster for Superman is "You'll Believe a Man Can Fly."
Mm-hmm.
So they were selling this all the way back then. And even though Donner did a great job with the first movie, it's still not that perfect. There's a lot of problems with it. I mean, never mind the Donner cut. of number 2, but I mean, go into like Batman 89. Like people like fawn all over that movie. And like I watched it again a while back and I'm like, this is like Tim Burton's student film. It's a really rough movie to watch.
It doesn't stand up.
It doesn't. Batman Returns is way too dark than it needed to be. It's almost like, again, like cynically dark.
Yeah.
And then we get into Batman Forever, which is like my personal favorite out of that whole group of films. You know, and then, you know, then they go completely to the opposite end of the spectrum with Batman and Robin, which is just an embarrassment. But then we finally 10 years later or 8 years later, we finally get into Batman Begins, and that kind of took the character seriously and presented it seriously in a world that felt real, you know? And so it evolved over then, but then, you know, a couple years down the road, you get like, here comes Iron Man, and that's setting up this universe. And then it's like, it just keeps going. And because DC keeps faltering on how to approach it, like, honestly, God, Man of Steel should have taken place in the Dark Knight universe. They should have never created a whole new universe. It should have just been like the Dark Knight, Superman. This is where we are.
It felt, Man of Steel, my biggest issue with Man of Steel is like, it felt as if you took any mention of Krypton, Superman, any of the tag words, took the S off of his chest, it could have been just a generic hero. That was kind of my complaint. I didn't feel like this was a Superman movie.
See, I did, because I also went into it thinking it was going to suck ass, because I was like, I'm not going to lie, I find Superman to be a boring character.
When Kevin Costner died, I was like, what the hell am I watching?
Oh, that was great. I love that. No, because dude, oh my God. For one, both of his dads in that movie were Robin Hood, so that's like automatically badass, which is true. But when Kevin Costner died, everyone loses their shit over that. They're like, oh, you should have saved him. Like, no, that was the whole point. The whole point of Jonathan Kent's character in that movie was he was trying to protect his son, even up to the point of where he basically sacrificed his life for that. Where he was like, I will die in order for you to maintain your anonymity, because I don't know what will happen to you. And everyone always dogs on that scene. It was literally like the ultimate sacrifice a father can make for his son. And that whole movie is about a father-son dynamic. And Clark not knowing where he stands. He's got 1 foot in one
tail. Like his dad was.
Oh, but it beats a. I understand. I get the heart attack.
Deconstructing something that he hasn't constructed yet.
No, they're deconstructing something that I think is there. I think, again, it goes back to, I remember in the trailer when like they had said like when the bus happened and it crashed into the river and he pulled everybody out and Jonathan's like kind of giving him the third degree over it. And he's like, what, should I just have let those people die? And he's like, maybe. That was his approach at life. He was worried about his son. And it's like, again, it's like, but there's this idea there that people have trouble wrapping their brain around. It's like, that's kind of the whole point. And that's, I think I'll tell you, I think it speaks to a larger issue in regards to how we view the father-son dynamic in movies, right? Where it's oftentimes like the son-mother dynamic or the mother-son dynamic is like, look at Thor, for example, right? The dynamic between Thor and Freya from Thor 1 to Thor 2, and then going into Endgame, where he feels responsible for his mother's death. And that's part of his PTSD that makes him Fat Thor in Endgame. But then we get to go back through the time, and he gets to go back and have that final encounter with his mother where she holds him and she says, like, you're worthy, basically, which is all he wanted to hear. That was great. But then you know, so that's a good example of that. But then go and look at, let's say, Into the Spider-Verse, which I think I love that movie. And then you got Miles and his father, and the whole time, like, there's just that disconnect there. But they still want to make it about the father-son. And that actually ties into to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. If you watch like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Lego movie, their dynamics are about sons and their dads and that relationship. And we don't see a lot of that explored in like a positive way, you know, or a way where like the overprotective dad is just wanting to look after his kid. Usually it's like the absent father, as evidenced by Lego movie and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and things like that. Whereas in Man of Steel, he wasn't an absent father. He was a very involved father, but he cared. You know what I mean? Like that's where I think the dynamic differs. And that's my argument for that. Like that's my argument for that. I have to
go back and watch it again.
I love Man of Steel. Like I went into Man of Steel
while.
Thinking it was going to suck because I hated the marketing for it. And then I walked out and I'm like, this is like my top 5 movie of the year. Like,
you'll never get me to say that.
I'll tell you this.
It's not as Green Lantern, but there's no way.
No. It's not as bad as Green Lantern, obviously.
You're not gonna get me to say that. So
But Man of Steel and BVS, dude, are like, they're solid films, and the trilogy is really good. If you just like Doomsday, we can argue that because I still think that was a little bit kind of iffy, but the Snyder trilogy of those films is
yeah,
surprisingly deep.
you're not gonna win me over with Lex Eisenberg either. So
You know what, he never got the opportunity to really shine, but I think what they were going for.
he got 2 damn movies to shine.
He did. No, he got one movie to shine. He was like, yeah, he had a cameo at the end of Justice League. That was it. He was only in Batman v Superman, and even then,
it was like DC babies, man. It was.
Did you see? Wait, though, but did you see the Ultimate Edition of BVS or just theatrical?
I saw the Ultimate.
Okay, because I think the Ultimate like really kind of expands upon Lex's character a bit more. Theatrical was bad.
I don't know. He's just too twitchy. You know, Lex Luthor is like, I'm like, this guy's going to be president.
Well, he was apparently Lex's son, is like one of the things that I've heard.
No.
You know, I don't know. I haven't
had it on screen. No.
You're right. Right. Wasn't on screen. No, it wasn't. Just like Luke Skywalker's death. Shouldn't have been there. You know, anyway.
Dude, that's all. we're ventured off. So
I know we've gone off. I know. And I do have to run too, so it's almost 3 p.m.
Where do we watch you now? What's your show name?
I'm over on Hollywood After Dark on youtube.com/$3 Theater.
What are you doing? How many shows a week are you doing?
I do have 5. I do Sunday to Thursday.
Okay. And then people can hit you on Patreon and actually like give you some money?
Yeah, sure. Patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.
There you go.
Yeah.
You got to get some cash your way up in the Northwest.
It's wintertime. Heat bill's going to go up quite a bit.
Oh,
Can't be like Southern California where it's warm all the time.
No, it was cold today. It was probably in the 60s when I was out doing.
Oh, you poor baby. So. You poor baby. You want to lay down? You want a blankie?
Oh, dude, I live in the canyon now, man. It's like there's stuff. So.
Oh yeah, okay. If you're like I live out in Chatsworth, I just tell you to pound sand.
No, I'm living in the canyon. It's pretty. It's very serene. I forget I'm in the city sometimes.
That's always a nice thing when you're living in LA.
All right, dude. I might have to hack this into 2 episodes. Who knows?
Maybe it's a fun one.
We'll do one on cancel and one on comic book movies and where are they going and why do we have to go with them? So
because that's all Hollywood is making right now.
No, it really is. Years ago, I think you and I talked about this once. Years ago, I read an interview with Spielberg and Lucas where they talked about the oncoming tier system of films, where we would get to a point where movies would be priced differently based on content. And how like superhero films and big event films would be priced more, and then you would get art house films would be priced differently and down. And I think you're seeing that. And COVID and streaming is definitely affecting that as well. So it's a whole new world when it comes
to it really is. But I'll tell you this as just as a bit of a thought experiment or just food for thought. Here's how you handle that problem, because it is coming and it should come actually. But what you do is you start lowering the price the further out from the release weekend. There's no reason why a movie that opened 4 weeks ago should still cost me the same price as a movie that opened yesterday.
Oh, damn straight, Skippy.
Yeah,
totally.
and then you get people who instead of just everyone rushing to Tuesday night cheap movie night, which I love, by the way. I still love that. But you know, now they've got subscription services for these companies, right? Like I have Cinemark, I pay for that, the Movie Club, and then you got AMC Stubs and Regal, I don't know, Give It Your Firstborn, whatever their thing is. You know, but it's like, and again, those services exist and people use them. I mean, I had what was it? Red, what was that thing? Not Redbox. You know, you could go and get you could pay $20 a month or whatever and get unlimited movies.
Thought that was.
No, Red. It's not Redbox. No, it's Red. Oh God. I totally forgot. It's just like, it doesn't matter. I should know this, but I just totally spaced on it. But no, all these theaters now, they're just trying to stay afloat, and they're gonna have to really figure out ways to get people back in. And the problem though is like when they would have bookers go after like, let's say, older movies to kind of do those revivals or whatever, to do those like, you know, Fandango type stuff. When Disney bought Fox, all of those Fox movies that were in the rotation for that all went back in the vault.
Yep.
I mean, so it's like, you know, They're just what's going to kill movie theaters are going to be studios. It's not going to end up being the changing demographic. It's literally going to be the restriction on this kind of stuff.
Well, AMC was doing pre-COVID. They were doing all basically closed circuit television things. They were doing, you could go see opera, and they would pipe it into the local movie theater, and they were really getting into all that stuff. The event things. It was like the old days when people used to go to a movie theater and watch satellite of like Muhammad Ali fighting. Now that was really big, and now that's all done in the home. So people aren't going to go to theaters to do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, what they should do is they should start doing more Broadway plays.
Oh, they're doing all that to home. I have a friend who's a theater producer. It's killing him because a lot of them, they're doing the Broadway plays. You can buy like, it's not Hamilton and not like first tier, but like a lot of the second tier. I believe it's the Old Vic is putting their stuff online. You can watch versions of it online. It's a huge thing, but a lot of them are doing it for free. They're not charging.
Oh,
so those are people who are trying to get into the space and charge for it. It's like, oh, well, wait a second. Why would I watch your production of this when I can watch so-and-so's production? It's almost the same thing. I'm not a big theater goer. Theater's theater. When I don't have to pay for their production, why would I pay for yours?
So I get that.
If you're somebody who's just interested in watching Shakespeare being performed, well, are you going to watch it done by this really amazing troupe, or are you going to watch the free version of decent actors and just to see the thing? It's leveling out. Everybody's figuring out how to do it. But I think you're totally right about movie theaters. They need to get that price, because who's going to pay $20 to watch something in the theater after the 40-day window now, down from 90 or whatever that window is
40,
now?
45 days is, I mean, like Free Guy
who's going to pay $20 to go see Jungle Cruise in the theater after 45 days when they could just get Disney at home and watch it on their big screen in their living room?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go see it in theaters. I saw Jungle Cruise at home. So it's, I mean, and I just cause I had kids and stuff, man, but like, I still went out to go see like Black Widow in theaters, and I saw Shang-Chi in theaters, and there's a lot of movies I want to go see, but here's the thing too. It's like the genres are just like horror or superhero or some action. I mean, comedies are practically dead. They're not putting comedies in theaters anymore. I mean, hell, even Owen Wilson decided to go do a Disney Plus movie for the Haunted Mansion over Wedding Crashers 2. They were trying to, he made that choice. I'm going to go to streaming. Yeah. Wow. Instead of going and doing a movie that his fans are like, hey, come and do Wedding Crashers 2. But I'm kind of okay with that because I feel Wedding Crashers it's a one and done sort of thing. I love that movie.
How can you go back to Funeral Crashers?
Yeah, 2005 comedy is not necessarily going to fly today in the way that you and I would like it to. No, like even The Hangover would be a tough sell these days.
Well, it's not going to go in a theater. It's just not going. It's going to. Well, geez, what's the new one? The Leonardo DiCaprio one.
Oh, Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up. And it's got there's 20 marquee level actors in it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, could you get that into a theater? You put it in a theater, it's going to make $10 million.
It might make well. Here's the thing with that too is so Netflix actually did this earlier this year. They put Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's zombie movie, in theaters for a limited engagement through Cinemark. It was only in 440 theaters. And it did $745,000 in the first weekend, which I mean is not honestly a Wes Anderson movie, and about the same theaters would pull in even a lot more cash. But it was enough for Cinemark and Netflix to go into a deal for theatrical distribution. Never mind the fact that they also bought The Egyptian. So that's going to be the way for them to run those movies there in order to be able to get something qualified for the Oscars.
People don't realize that that's a lot of the reason why they do that.
Oh yeah, no, I totally saw that coming a long time ago. I mean, hell, even Amazon purchasing MGM now gives them a distributor. So they can get their films out there or whatever. But Netflix is going to be, I mean, look at this. They've got Don't Look Up. They've got Red Notice that movie looks major. $185 million budget. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and
I'm prepared to be disappointed on that one.
You know what? I saw the trailer. I like the trailer, but yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one.
Did you
But
see the special scene they released, the
yeah,
fight scene the other day?
I did. And you know what? It's like, look, that's going to be one scene in the movie, but if that's what they show me, I'm okay with that. I hate when they overdo the marketing and they show me way too much. So, because a lot of times, it's like for Deadpool, for example, I consumed the marketing for Deadpool a lot. And so when I saw the movie, I felt like I had seen the movie because the marketing shows you like the first half of the film, basically.
Mm.
You know, and so the first time I saw Deadpool, I was relatively, I don't want to say disappointed. I was underwhelmed. And then I was like, all right, it was fun, you know, but then I went and I found a copy of it online. It was on some website. I just randomly found it. And I ended up watching this really terrible cam copy of it. And but then like it clicked for me while I was just listening to it in the background. I'm like, oh yeah. And I started, you know, getting into it again. And then the next weekend I took my girlfriend to go see it. So she could watch it. And I loved it even more seeing it the second time in theaters, my third time total. And she loved it. And even now we pop it in occasionally and give it a watch. And I think it's like a 10 out of 10. Sometimes these movies require more than one viewing. And that is the problem. There's so much content these days that getting 2 viewings out of something is difficult to do unless you have kids. Like I've seen Boss Baby, the new one, like 15 times. And you know what? I love it. I do. I think it's really good. But it's like I wouldn't have watched it if I didn't have kids. Like
But
Luca.
that's not going to happen for even more reasons, because now these services, they have to be able to purge their selections. You know, it's only if something comes out and it's on Netflix, okay, well, it's going to be on Netflix for 3 months, and some people aren't going to watch it more than once on 3 months, and then it disappears into the ether and no one sees it for a couple of years.
Well,
same with Amazon.
Oh no, I know, and that's the big problem with that. And that's also like, you know, it's like I brought this up the other day, you know, go back to June 1982. All right. I was the ripe old age of like 3 months. And you know, that but the weekend that The Thing came out was the same weekend that Blade Runner came out. And Blade Runner was number 2, The Thing was number 9. What was number 1 was E.T.
Mm-hmm.
And E.T. had been number 1 for a while. And then also in that same top 10 was Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. So you had like major movies that you know, kind of identify, like kind of define our childhood to an extent.
Right.
We're all out at the same time. So then I want to take you to like June 2008. All right. You go to 2008 and you're looking at like 3 major film releases a week. That summer alone, just from May until the end of July. And this is a rough thing. It's not entire. Iron Man, Speed Racer, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Prince Caspian, Wanted, Step Brothers, Hellboy, The Golden Circle, The Dark Knight, Tropic Thunder, Kung Fu Panda, Wall-E, You Don't Mess with the Zohan. I mean, there are more movies that came out in that 3-month period. We're talking 3 major releases a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is absolutely unsustainable. Because I worked at a theater at the time. I worked at the drive-in. So we only got a couple of them at a time because we only had the space for it.
Yeah.
And I would go see the other ones in theaters. But I'm just saying, it's like there are so many movies that came out that it becomes almost insane amounts of you're asking too much from people.
Well,
and then
that's exactly, so that ties us back around, because that's why they're creating, we're back to these niches.
Yeah.
Because now it's about world building. It doesn't, and how many of those movies that you just named, only a couple of them, but Kung Fu Panda, good example. There's an entire world build around there. There's a show, there's the toys, there's multiple films.
Yeah.
You know, so now they've created a niche, and it's like, okay, well, if your kid is crazy about Kung Fu Panda, we've got you covered because you've got this entire world built. DC, entire world. You know, you're creating these niches where you're building a fan base. It's not any different than what we were talking about podcasts.
Yeah.
So you get your loyal fan base, get them in, milk them for everything they got until they've watched everything you have. If you can't produce any more, then you're done with them. Get them hooked on something else.
Yeah. And that's just the nature of the beast, really. And it's unfortunate. It's where it's like, you know, they used to have a slow release, you know, a slow rollout, slower rollout for things, or they'd bring a lot of stuff back, you know, like, what is it? There's always that argument about Gone with the Wind, right? Gone with the Wind is the adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing film of all time, right? But that is a fallacy, because you can't look at the you can look at the original run of Gone with the Wind and apply it did pretty well, but it's been re-released 8 times. It's been re-released a bunch. So the dollar that people are basing it off of from back in what the 1930s, I think, like it's not the same as when it was re-released in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know what I
And
mean?
it was also, if I remember my movie history right, it was like on a road show. Like it literally was working its way around the country
Yeah.
for years,
Yeah.
because it was a different way of doing films back then.
Oh yeah. No,
It wasn't
100%.
a 2 week to 1 month, okay, pull it from all the screens.
Yeah. And so, people argue like they argue that adjusted for inflation. By the way, I hate that argument when it comes to discussing films too. I think it's ridiculous because we never look at, like, if you go and you look at the top box office, right? What's the number one box office grosser right now? Avatar, like 2.8 million somewhere, or 2.8 billion
Yeah.
somewhere in there, right? Just a very slightly above Endgame. But if you run that through an inflation calculator from 2009, which is when it came out, to now, it's like $3.7 billion. So it's value. I mean, then again, you're playing with literally imaginary money at that point
It's
to
a
win.
big game. It's a game for film geeks. And I admit
It,
it, we both play in it all the
yeah,
time, but
we do.
does that change the social structure in the United States whether Avatar made
No,
2.7 or
it
3.9?
doesn't. It just
It,
makes you a bit of an asshole.
it's for people who get on podcasts and talk movies for this little niche audience that wants to talk about inflationary numbers. And somebody's got a podcast out there that only covers the this exact subject, and there's like 7 people that are ditching them Patreon money every day. It's out there, and I'll
Yeah,
get an email about it, and somebody will be like, "Screw you! Don't pick on this show."
I get that all the time.
It's true, but it's that fragmentation, and we keep coming back to that. And it's the fragmentation. Is that sustainable? This continual fragmentation when you're only surrounded by people who have the same interests as you, who have the same agenda as you, if not that everybody's got some devious agenda, but just an agenda is what you believe in. So if there's one person that has just enough fans to keep his show going through subscriber base, then there's a community that's been created. But how sustainable is that? And that ties back to what we were talking about kids wanting to be influencers and wanting to get their ideas out there. Like, I deal with people all the time where, especially lately, as I've been on podcasts and I'm learning more about the system and seeing how it goes. And these people have these little niche shows where it's like, we're going to talk about something that there's probably an audience of 100 people in the country, and they're never going to be able to grow past that. So I think it's that niche. We keep coming back to that. It's the fragmentation,
Yeah.
And it's how far does that go before we're just full of everybody's little channels? I'm going to listen to Matt today because he's talking about something that interests me, and I don't want any controversy. And it's on a locked channel, and I'll give him $10 because he was great.
I would like a lot of people to do that. If I could get 200 people a month to do that, I'd be sitting pretty.
This is GoFundMe. This is GoFunding your life, isn't it?
Well, is it? I mean, is it like we pay for things we like? Why not toss a couple bucks, dude? Like, toss a coin to your Witcher, right? Just like, you like the content, I mean, look, we've always wanted things to be a la carte anyway. This kind of just puts it in that particular place, and it takes away the power from mega corporations and gives it to the little guy, which is.
But then you're only listening to what? Okay, but if that gets to a point where it's the news, so we both listen to Crystal Ball. Let's use her as an example. So their show, one of her shows, is subscriber based. So if you're only getting your news and your exposure to the outside world from Crystal Ball, then how is that any better than somebody who just listens to Fox News or just listens to CNN or just listens to MSNBC? Now you're paying directly for somebody that you agree with, who's not going to challenge your ideals, and now we're right back to the same problem.
Well, I mean, you would like to think that they would, that they would do that. You'd like to think that would be the case. But no, people are generally enjoy their echo chamber. And shh, you're saying the quiet part out loud. No, okay. No, I don't know. I don't know, man. I get to that. I think people need to be more open to conversation. But I think, okay, I do have to go in a minute. But I was reading this thing today on the believe it or not the New York Post, and they were talking about how the new lady Rashida Jones is in charge of MSNBC, and how she wants to focus on more hardcore journalism rather than personality driven content. And the problem is that the personality driven content is what is those are the, the opinion shows from 5 to 11. Those are what bring in the money. The big bucks come in from the opinion. Yeah, Maddow's a huge one. And recently she almost walked away from MSNBC, under a contract renegotiation because she wanted to do less work and make more money. She wanted to not be able to have to be on the air all the time. And I get that. And so it's like, it's like they're kind of in this weird space. Like, do you want to challenge CNN to get more views? Like, can you in any effective way challenge Fox? And but here's the thing with that though, is MSNBC, CNN viewers will not ultimately watch Fox, like, ever. However, Fox viewers will frequently watch MSNBC because for some reason conservatives, as I've learned, they don't have a problem with hearing alternate opinions. They just like to get mad about shit. There's the difference. They'll listen, but they just want to get mad. That's my experience with it, at least.
I agree. I'd agree with that. They want the evidence to prove that they're pissed off.
Yeah, but I've been noticing ever since Tucker Carlson's gone full on white replacement theory, they've been a little bit silent on that.
Oh, Tucker! Don't get me started because you got to go Tucker Carlson and Nicki Minaj's ball sack story. The whole, it's amazing how Tucker can absolutely hate her, everything she does, everything she's ever created, but then suddenly when she latches onto a ball sack story that actually, he agrees with, suddenly she is, perfect for his show. And how could he have ever disagreed with anything she did as long as he doesn't have to think about it?
I know he is literally the worst thing on television right now. But he's literally pulling it in for Fox. And as soon as he's no longer useful, they're going to can him.
Oh, we've seen that before. Bill O'Reilly.
Megyn Kelly, with MSNBC at least, but she also left Fox very similar, like just to get away from them.
Yeah. But you got it on the other side too. You got Don Lemon. Yeah. He came out and he had this whole diatribe about how the problem with the vaccine people and how they need to be, all of them need to be just dealt with and no one turned. And then, you break it down and the New York Times broke it down and they're like, yeah, there's the people who are anti-vaxxers, but it's not as many as you think. A lot of them actually can't get it for this reason, this reason. My mother has autoimmune issues, real ones, not this chiropractor bullshit that guy got busted for, but like literally her doctor said, if you get it, it's more chances than not, it will kill you. And so she cannot get it. So she is one of those medical people. But you got people like Don Lemon that are like, nope, absolutely no excuses. 100% of the people in the country should get the vaccine. Well, hold on a second. Let's have a discussion about that.
Now, I will.
Medical? Is it financial? There are people who can't get it for financial reasons, who can't even, can't handle one day off from work if they have a adverse side effect. Let's talk about that. Let's not just make it one side or the other. Battle lines are drawn.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, like I'm
not. It's my show. Of course I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Well, no. Anyway.
Tucker.
I heard you say that to that cop too. And I'm like, he could, you know what? He could, he could make you disappear. All right. Let's be fair. You're like, I live in the canyon. There's a lot of open space out there in Coyotes, Eric. Okay. Just make no mistake. All right. No. All right, and you're going to be the next Gabby. You're going to be the next Gabby Petito.
Oh, what do you think? Do you think they're going to find her boyfriend alive?
Man, you know what? Like, that's such a weird thing. I don't know. I think it's possible. Like, I don't think he's in that reserve.
You don't think so?
No, God, no. It's like he told his parents, I'm going to the reserve. And they're like, okay. And they went and they found his car. It's like 25,000 acres. It's a lot.
You heard he's actually got like survival skills that came out. They said the other day that he's
I've read that. Yeah. That he's got.
I think they're going to find him at the bottom of the swamp. That's
I don't think they're going to find him. I don't think they're going to find this guy.
It'll be
He might.
interesting when this airs. Like what has happened by the time this airs.
Yeah. Well, it's like the day that they found her body, Nancy Grace, God, fucking Nancy Grace, she was like, I'm going to be on Fox News tonight, 10 p.m. talking about the Gabby Petito case. And I'm out there doing delivery driving and I have Sirius XM. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to listen to Fox, but I'll tune in. And they found her body and that totally disrupted her whole show. And it literally was nothing of substance, like 45 minutes, nothing of substance. It was just terrible stuff. But no, I think like with the boyfriend, it's entirely possible that he didn't do anything yet. That maybe they want to find him to ask him questions, obviously, because he hasn't been charged with a crime.
He's been charged with illegally using her debit card.
Oh yeah.
There's a term for it. It's not homicide, but it's involved. He took advantage of a homicide. Don't quote me on that. That's not the actual charge, but he was indicted or charges were filed because he withdrew money on her card after they know she was dead.
Oh, okay.
So could that have been he just needed to get home, or is it like I got to get the F out of here and I'm going to use it? Who knows? Let
me ask you this, just as like the contrarian aspect of this thing. Mm-hmm. So they found her body about 1,000 feet away from where that travel vlog family had seen the van, out by Scatter Creek. Okay. And he was clearly in the van. Did you see that? The van door shut? Mm-hmm. So he was clearly in the van when they went by. And then, like this guy's a survivalist. This guy understands the woods, but he just left her body out there. He just left her body. Like I saw pictures of where they found the body. There's like not even any real bushes out. I mean, like there's a couple trees, but like it wasn't a shallow grave. It was, as far as I understand it, it was just, they found the body out there. And it's like, okay. You're telling me this guy, like, who's got all these survival skills, killed this woman and then left her body, like just left it out there? Like, I mean, if he's going to go through the trouble of dragging her or at least getting her 1,000 feet away from his van, he's just going to I don't know. I don't know the autopsy reports. I haven't read the police report yet, but
yeah, they haven't.
Something about that doesn't seem right to
me. They haven't released a lot of the details.
No, that will come out in due time. And then when that happens,
it was misadventure. I think it was, they had and this is just based on just my own thoughts. This is not based on any knowledge that I have heard or anything, because there's nothing out there. I just think something went wrong, whether it was a fight or
like an accidental death.
Like, yeah, it was like literally see on Columbo. You're like, no, I really didn't kill her. She fell and hit her head. Or maybe he pushed her, or maybe, I don't think he meant to kill her. I don't think it was, even if it was in a moment of anger, I don't think it was a premeditated, I'm going to kill my girlfriend, dump her body in the woods.
Well, and that's the thing too, is people looking at the body cam footage and they're trying to base, like, I'm in a group of, I have like 15,000 people for this like true crime group and whatnot. And yesterday they live streamed Gabby's funeral, or the memorial from New York. They were live streaming it. And I made a comment in there about how I thought this whole thing, it comes across as like perverse in my mind. It's kind of like unnatural and kind of sick. I think like, I don't mind
the preoccupation with it.
There's the preoccupation with how far the family is letting it go. Like the dad especially is like, I think he's been, I don't want to say benefiting off of it, but there's been this emotional like high that's come from it. And I think like that's like, he's probably never had this much attention and he doesn't want to lose it. I know that sounds terrible to say, and I'm not trying to denigrate the guy or nothing, but that's, like, I mean, why would you do a live stream and then put the link out publicly for people who don't even know her to watch? It just becomes, at this point, it just becomes a voyeuristic thing. And a lot of people have been capitalizing off of this. I mean, I've made a couple TikToks and some other videos about it and whatnot, but I like to look at these things as objectively as possible. I like to try to follow the clues where I can, and see what's out there,
Well, and that's the thing though. She's an influencer. She was
barely an influencer.
Okay, but that's what she was trying. That's what they were trying to achieve. They were trying to achieve that status through their trips. They were posting everything. They were trying to, van life. They were trying to follow that. Where does that come from? But we don't know anything about her family, and it's not fair to speculate, and it's not fair to do any of that. But if it were to come out more of the dynamics of the family, I'm sure that would explain a lot. You know,
Well, yeah. So I mean, like I know that like his family lived down there in Florida, and like she had lived with them for a year, and so like, and obviously that his parents have just kind of like they've clammed up, and that's probably at the advice of the lawyer, like just
shut up.
shut up, don't say a word. And then people are literally going out to their house, and they're like every hour on the hour, and they're bringing air horns, and they're just blasting at the house, like trying to like torture the parents into like giving up information. The parents actually just put out a statement while we've been talking. I was looking at it real quick, and they said like, no, we don't know where he is. And the thing is, no one's going to believe him because, he was home and then he disappeared and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the parents know. I think he's somewhere nearby. I don't think, because here's the thing, when you run, you have a greater chance of getting caught when you run. Because people have said that they've seen him out in like, was it Mississippi or something, Missouri or somewhere in there. They've been like potential sightings all over and stuff. I think he's somewhere definitely nearby. I don't think he's in Carlton Reserve just because it's like, it's too clean. Why would he
was trying to throw him off the trail?
Yeah. He's just, I'm going to park my car here, let him know I'm going about, 15 miles northwest up to Carlton Reserve. Okay. I'm going to go for a hike to clear, and then just leaves the car, and the parents bring the Mustang back. And there's now some discrepancy on the timing of when they brought it back. And so there's a lot going on, and everyone's like just kind of running with it. And it's like, it's become that moment. And, you might remember this with, some other cases, but if a cute white girl goes missing and or is murdered, it literally stops the world, and that is what we're seeing here. And that's another prime example of that. And I know people that are just, they are massively capitalizing on this. Like I've done some TikToks on it, but I thought about it. I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and every little thing I'm not going to talk about, because I'm kind of probably even going to stop doing TikToks on it, just because I don't want to like over capitalize on it. Cause that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I want to provide information, but I don't want to sit there and run like a live stream and have like 20,000 people watch it, or just trying to like wait for more information.
It's not like you're not an investigative journalist. It's not like you're coming, no offense, but you're not coming to the argument. It's like, I have new information. I'm helping with the investigation. This will help. You can be a clearinghouse at best.
Yeah. And I've gotten earlier this year, I was doing a podcast, a daily true crime podcast, that your ex actually was a fan of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't realize she had joined my group and whatever. And it was called Milk Carton Mysteries. Huh. And I was just like talking about like, true crime as it happened, right? Giving my take on it and stuff. And there was this missing person last year out of a small town in Missouri called Braggadocio. And it's like got 73 people in it. It's tiny as shit. This dude up and vanishes without his wallet, shirt, phone, pants, anything, including his teeth. He left his teeth behind. Up and vanished. No one's seen him, but he was staying with his girlfriend in like a one room, like kind of crack shack type situation. And again, it's a situation like this. Guy goes missing. Woman claims that he just left. Doesn't make any sense. Her story kind of changes. Well, I talked about it in a video, and she listened to it. And there had been an accusation from somebody else in town that she had killed her former husband. And so she wanted to clear her name on that. So she contacts me. And I'm like, okay, well, can I interview over this whole thing? And I'm going to record it. She's like, okay. So then she says, I need to talk to my attorney. And I'm like, well, your attorney in my mind, I'm like, your attorney would never tell you to talk to me, like ever. So, okay, fine. But we end up getting on the phone, and she starts immediately trying to, prove her innocence over like, I didn't kill my husband, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, but I don't want to talk about the Mark thing. Mark is the guy who went missing. No, then we ended up having like a 90-minute conversation about Mark, and I mean, like her story kind of shifted a little bit from what I call, but then I also got in contact with the like Mark's friend, who has like boots on the ground, kind of trying to coordinate whatever, right? Trying to keep pressure on her a little bit. And I gave her the audio to compare notes and stuff. And then the whole thing from there went crazy. And like, that was my bad, right? I'm like, I probably shouldn't have shared that because I didn't publish it. I shouldn't have shared it. I was trying to be helpful, realized that I probably overstepped my bounds, like what was decent of me to do. And I backed off. So, but I think she did it. I'll tell you this right now. I think that woman did it, but or has something to do with it. She says a couple of choice things in there, and if she ever ends up getting convicted, right, I'll release the audio then. But
It's
until
gonna be
then,
like the Jinx with like
yeah,
like
yeah,
the,
and he just got
catch
Robert
him in
Durst,
the bathroom.
yeah, and he just got convicted.
He did.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, I mean,
R. Kelly got convicted today too.
I
Did you
know
hear about
all
that?
accounts. Take that, you humans. I believe I
No.
can fly to jail.
All
Anyway.
right, man. We've gone off the rails with our whole talk about the judicial system.
This is, look, you call this the open highway, right? Like, how do
we
these
are
conversations
definitely on the highway.
how do these conversations take place in a car? You know, you're hanging with your buddy, you're on a road trip.
Totally.
You know, it's going to go from one topic to another, round back around, and then eventually tits.
See, there you go. You get it. But we kept coming back to the same thing.
We did. It's, you know what? It's a gift. It's a curse.
There we go. All right, brother. Matt Jarbo. Nice to talk to you again.
You too, man. You too.
For the highways of America, which for so many years were an assortment of as many designs and pavements as there were states, are now becoming one big road that can take you anywhere faster, safer, and more directly than ever before. What is this big road? Where is it going? How much has been built? How much is yet to come? These are questions we ask. Certainly traveling the entire system would be a memorable experience, but few of us have the time for such a trip.
All rights reserved. Viking Dog 2021.